Hello and welcome to the Select Board meeting for Wednesday, February 17th. We had an exec session starting at 6:30 and we've now opened back up into open session. So thank you all for being here. Welcome to our meeting. We are going to start with citizens participation. I would ask that you either raise your hand in your screen or use the participant list where you can raise your hand there. If possible, if you could show us you as well as let us hear you, that'd be great, just for not only for us, but for other people. I'm going to let Mark Dissoni start. Mark, go ahead.
Okay, thank you, and good evening all. And yes, Texas has it bad, but I'm much rather have the spring that was almost like temperature here up here. Now, I wanted to ask, is this agenda tonight going to be a full? Everything's going to be talked on the agenda?
As far as I know, yes, we are addressing everything that's on the agenda.
Okay, then through the chairman to the town manager. The BFC, did my email come through to you on suggestions?
When did you send that, Mark?
About a week ago, saying, well, I think should have the companies in and stuff like that, the business list.
I do not think I did, Mark. I'm sorry.
Okay. And I know that right after citizens participation, it's going to be a congratulations retirement to Paula Benetti. I wanted to say out loud that me and her got to know each other for, I don't know, before she was director, and is a jewel in the town. Is going to be missed by one and all. And me and her got along like we were part of each other's families, and she's going to be really missed and understandable. But Paula, she does need the time, and she has a family and husband and all that do care about her. And the library is not going to be the same without her. Thank you.
Thank you, Mark, and I would have to agree with that. Okay, is there anyone else who would like to speak now? Depending on where we get with discussion on things, if you want to talk about specific items, maybe unmute yourself and let me know what items you would like to participate in so I can get an idea of how long things might take. If you are interested in talking about our Valentine update, just raise your hand or show me. Okay, I have 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay, I got a couple of people who want to talk about the Valentine update, the downtown project update. Anybody have questions or concerns there? No. Okay, I have a feeling a lot of you are here for the Valentine discussion. Okay, if you are here for something other than the Valentine discussion, let me know by either raising a hand or waving. Kathy, yours is still up. I don't know if you're looking to do something other than Valentine. If you're looking to do something other than Valentine, leave it up. If you're just here for Valentine, go ahead and take your hand down. Okay, that helps. Okay, seeing no other public citizen tongue twisted there. No other citizen participation. Oh, I'm sorry, Catherine.
Actually did, yeah, that was one of my hands.
Wrong, Kathy, so sorry. Other than Valentine? Yep.
Yes, 11 Rodman Road. I just wanted to follow up. I apologize if it's been posted or meeting minutes or semi-public, because I haven't had a lot of time to check, but the 433 Chestnut Hall House, I'm wondering if there's any updates on that.
We are going to be talking about that later in our meeting. Yes,
all right.
Things have been moving there, and we're going to talk about that later in our meeting.
Cool, thank you.
Okay. Kathy Rooney? Other than...
Hello?
Hi, Kathy.
Hi. Okay, I'm having trouble with my screen right now. So Valentine Estate and downtown.
Okay.
On my list of things to talk to you about.
Okay. Great. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay. Okay. If you could mute themselves, we're going to go into retirement discussion and well, not celebration because we're not glad she's retiring, but Paula Benetti. Paula, welcome to our meeting.
Thank you. Thank you all.
And I'm going to let Michael or Jen kick this off, one of the two.
Yeah. Well, this is a bittersweet moment. As we've talked about earlier, we're here to celebrate Paula's retirement as director of the Ashland Public Library. And Paula, as many people have said, her shoes are going to be really, really hard to fill. She's just been a stellar library director. She's been a stellar department head. She managed the renovation of the library. I think when you were relatively new here, right, Paula? Like when you just started on board. So
I think like 3 months into my job, I found out it was happening.
Yeah, did they tell you that when you interviewed?
I think we were on a 2-year waiting list at that point for money, but the money came through very quickly.
Okay, and so then you just got thrust into there. I will say, I will just say this, and I'll turn it over to other people. Department heads, for me, it's a really fine. They have to find a balance between going ahead and making decisions, and running their operations, and then maybe checking in with myself or Jen before moving forward with something. It's a delicate balance, and it's almost innate. I don't think it's something that you can teach. Paula is the epitome of that. She finds that balance every single time. And I know that anything that's going on over at the library, or I did know that anything going on at the library was in capable hands. Everything was running smoothly. If something was not, I would be made aware of it pretty quickly. So Paula, I got to thank you personally for making my job a little bit easier too. And I wish you and Gary the best. I know we've talked about this for a couple of years now.
Yeah.
Wait, and you're letting her go?
Thank you.
We couldn't keep her a little longer?
Well, we did keep her a little longer. So.
Well, I've gotten to know Paula throughout the years, and I remember when it was that little library and going downstairs into the basement for the children's programs with my daughters, and it's become a wonderful resource for our community, all under Paula's guidance, and her working with the Friends of the Library. So I know we have at least one library trustee on. I don't know if we have more than that. So I'm going to open it up to the board if there's anyone else who'd like to. But Paula, thank you for all your years of service.
Thank you.
And you will be missed.
Thanks.
Steve, go ahead. Unmute. Unmute.
So Paula, I just want to check that you've discussed this retirement with Gary and he's aware of it?
Yes.
Yes.
He has already told me that I can't be the boss at home. I have to give that up. So.
All right. Well, I will tell you, I will speak very highly about retirement. I don't know about Bonnie at this point, but I just want to acknowledge, your service to the town. And, you've really, really made our public library into a real community center in so many ways. And, I think I speak for a lot of people who really appreciate all the work that you've done. So bon voyage, as they say. And
thank you.
We'll look forward to hearing about, some of your trips when we're back traveling again.
Yeah.
Wow.
No.
So thank you.
Okay.
Rob?
Yeah, I just want to add and kind of echo some of Yolanda's statements. I remember bringing my kids to when the library was much smaller, and what a great improvement. But back then it was a nice place to be, a great spot for kids. And Paula, you've been instrumental to that all these years, and we'll miss you. And good luck. It's as you move along in years, the people move on as well. So that's so it won't be quite the same place without you there. But anyway, thank you for all your work over the years, and good luck in your retirement. So.
Thank you.
Brandy?
So,
we're going to let Brandy go. You'll have the last word, Paula.
Okay.
No, I just wanted to say thank you for all your years of service, the library. You know, I have a teenager, and you know, when we had him, the library became our center. You know, like that's where we met so many people in the community. That's where he met many of his friends. And I saw the programming and everything just grow over the years, and just you know, it's really become you know, a, like Steve and Yolanda said, it's a community center. So you know, on behalf of all the residents, you know, we just thank you for everything that you've done, and wish you all the best in retirement and enjoy.
Thank you.
Okay, Paula, last words are yours.
Yeah, I just want to say that I just wanted the opportunity to say thank you too. It's I think other than Michael, I'm probably one of the few people that I can say 95% of the time I get up and came to work and it was a pleasure. And not many people can say that. So thank you for your support over the years. I think, you know, the building, it is an amazing building. The board of trustees, we've always had a good relationship, and I think that's really key. Not only is it a good time for me, but I've talked to other people, and I truly believe it's a good time for the library. The pandemic obviously has changed things, and I think we're really at kind of a crossroads, and I think it's a good time for somebody to kind of come in and take the library into the next phase. So I'm very optimistic, and I look forward to watching it grow, and I won't be a stranger when things get better and I'm vaccinated. As a matter of fact, we're trying to get my husband an appointment for tomorrow. I'm monitoring everything. I hope to get back to the farmers market and the Dragonfly Festival and all the nice things in Ashland. So, and thank you all for your support and your friendship over the years. I'm sort of overwhelmed with the email and the cards and the well wishes from all the library patrons. And I feel really good about it, and very optimistic that the next person will walk into a really nice position with a lot of opportunity. So thank you.
Great. Well, thank you so much, Paula. I heard you're going to be around for a little while, so that's good.
I don't know about that. We'll see. We haven't talked about that.
At least until next week, right, Paula?
Yeah, my last day is actually Tuesday.
Okay.
That's the end of my contract.
It was supposed to be Tuesday.
Yeah.
Uh-oh. Well, Paula, thank you for taking
right.
a few minutes and joining us here tonight so that we
Okay.
could all publicly thank you.
And thanks for inviting me.
Okay. Have a good rest of your night.
You
Thank
too.
you.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Thank you.
Great. The next item on our agenda is, it was going to be Valentine Committee appointments. And that's what we had talked about at our last meeting. And as we were preparing our agenda, we did a review of what the charge was for the committee when we created it back in 2019. And when we reviewed that charge, we realized that the committee, as it sits, has done most of what it was asked to do. So, and I'm going to hand this over to Michael Herbert in just a second. So before, rather than add 2 new members to a committee that has basically committed and completed what we have charged it to do, we decided we needed to take a look at what had already happened and then make a decision as to how we're going to move this project forward, whether it's this committee or whether we thank this group for its service because it's done a great job. So that is some of the discussion that's going to be happening tonight. I'm going to let Michael take us through his information, then I will open it up to comments. But at this point, I do not see us appointing, at least not this evening, any new members to this committee, because as you'll see from Michael's presentation, they've basically completed the charge that they were given as a committee back in 2019. But we are going to listen to people. I know I see a lot of names. Valentine, thank you for coming. And I guess just one more thing before I open it up to Michael and then to the rest of our board and then to all of you is know that I personally, as a member of the select board, and I think the rest of my members, our goal is to do what is best for this property and what is best for this community from both a historical preservation of this property and a financial perspective for our community. So it's a lot of different moving parts and a lot of things that to be considered regarding this property. But we all are working to do what's best. So, Michael, I'm going to hand it over to you.
All right, thanks, Yolanda.
You're welcome.
Yes, so when reviewing the Valentine Committee charge, it was to basically find the best, the most feasible and most appropriate use for the Valentine property. And there were 4 steps outlined to do that. First of all was to attend scheduled meetings. The second step was to work to develop interest in the property from targeted proposers. The third was to evaluate proposals. And then number 4, make a recommendation of the best, most feasible proposal to the select board and town meeting for appropriate action. And it's interesting, over the course of 14, 15 months now that the Valentine Committee has been working, all of that work gets spread out, and sometimes it dilutes a little bit of what the totality of work that has happened. But once you start putting it all together, it's been really interesting to see just how much work has been done. First, in terms of scheduled meetings, the Valentine Committee, they've met formally 13 times over the course of 15 months. They did so even during the pandemic. Of course, obviously, we're going through Zoom. But then also members of the committee, they took their own time to go out and meet on the site, whether meet experts on the site or go explore the site on their own. We had one member, Susan, who met, I believe, with David, with somebody from the Mass Preservation Circuit Rider program to talk about ideas and some of the dating of the properties and everything. At this point, I don't think all of our committee members are here, but I would like to acknowledge the people on the committee. So myself, David Foster, Susan Scher, Scott LaBelle, Margie Gassel, Miles McConnon, and he's a relatively new member here. And then I feel like I'm counting and I'm missing one person.
Cedric Bacon.
Cedric Bacon.
Yep.
And Judy.
And I could never pronounce her last name. Right. And a guess. So they are all members of the committee. And so several of them are here today, and they're going to talk about the work that they have done leading up to this. So the second point was to work to develop interest in the property from targeted proposers. So the first step that the committee did was they met with different organizations from communities across Metro West, and to see how they operated their own local historic and or agricultural properties in their community. We met with the Holliston Historical Society, which is a private not-for-profit organization. Medway's Thayer Homestead, that is owned by the town and operated by the town, as well as Natick Community Organic Farm, which is a private not-for-profit organization as well. We had initially wanted to meet with the Josiah Smith Tavern in Weston, but after doing further research and because of the pandemic, we decided to not do that, and we opted to do more research. And based on the conversations that we had through public forums, through some of the committee members had with different people, and based on a lot of the information that they had gleaned from other communities, they came up with a list of uses and a criterion that would be deemed important to the town. So when I talk about list of uses, we're talking about things like a restaurant or a bed and breakfast or a theater space or a presentation space. And when I'm talking about criterion, I'm talking about what would be used to evaluate against. So, does it keep the historical aspects of the property? Is it open to the community to use? Would the town have access to some of the facilities? So things of that nature. So as part of that, the committee and really with the help of Jen Ball and Beth Reynolds put together what's known as a request for proposals. And so that is a very extensive document that goes out to the public sphere, and anybody who's interested can put together a proposal on what they would like to do with the property. It was very open-ended. And I will let Beth, you're here, right? So Beth Reynolds here, she helped put together with the committee a marketing plan, and she can go through what steps they took as part of that marketing.
So this property has so much potential. So when we were putting the RFP together after we met with the committee that gave us the kind of charge to do so, we put together a great RFP, and we really marketed it out there to the community, to outside the community, to anyone that we thought would be a good fit for this property. And the committee had some input as well. We put it out as a press release for news sources locally, and then into Worcester, into Boston, Marlborough. We also used our social media sites. The Valentine Estate actually has its own Facebook page, so we used that as well as the town sites. Our local TV station, and then all the other groups that are very active in town, just to spread the word, because you never know who has interest in this property. We used our newsletters, and then we did some local outreach as well. Like Michael was mentioning, there were a lot of there are a lot of models that we had interest in exploring. So we did reach out to them. We went to the trustees of reservations, Sudbury Valley trustees, I know that one. And then we did some direct email outreach to restaurants that have, or even facilities that have actually taken historic properties and transformed them into successful businesses that have brought vitality and truly energy to their communities, like Gibbet Hill up in Groton. We looked at different developers that have done similar projects like this, Kenny Development, Wynn, Parsons. And we reached out to them as well to see if they had interest. We did not find any with that. I know that Judy had reached out to somebody directly at Sudbury Valley Trustees. David Foster actually worked hard with the Mass Farm Bureau Federation and Mass Audubon, and some other architects. It also got picked up by a magazine, Revitalization. So it was featured in that, which was nice to see. So it got some traction. But when we did the RFP, we did only get 2 responses, although we did have some activity, people did view it. But we definitely got the messaging out there and targeted some for sure.
Thanks, Beth. Ultimately, we ended up having 18 unique people or organizations pull the RFP, meaning that they downloaded the documents, expressed an interest in it. We had 2 from Ashland. Again, we thought that was going to translate into more proposals. Unfortunately, what we ended up with was 1 proposal and then 1 letter of interest. The 1 proposal was from Legacy Development, and then the letter of interest was from an organization called Waypoint Adventures. So even though
Michael, how long was the RFP out there for?
We extended it a couple of times, right, Jen? So do you have the
total time? How long was it out there for people to look at and respond to?
I will have to get the exact dates, but we did extend it. We gave, I think it was over, I want to say 60 days, but I can double check and get back to you. And
okay, so at least a couple of months it was available for people to look at. And
I believe so, yeah. I will for you.
Okay, thank you.
And roughly, what were the dates of that it was out?
But it was issued October 15th, 2020.
Okay, so heading into the holidays.
Correct.
Okay.
Well, you're heading into Halloween, so.
Well, depending on how you look at it, you know, once you hit November 1st, you're heading into the holidays.
So
Okay.
even though we only had one proposal, we decided to go ahead and score it and evaluate it. I did not take part of that process. Again, that was Scott and Susan, and they are going to go just briefly through their analysis and what they come up with, or what they came up with. Susan and Scott, did you flip a coin to see who's going first?
I think I'm going first.
Okay.
That seems.
Yeah,
please do, Susan.
Okay. Ready?
Go for it. You got this.
Okay, so like Michael said, we did get one full proposal and then a letter of interest. So the letter of interest was from Waypoint Adventure. They run educational and outdoor recreational programs for individuals with disabilities, for kids and young adults. And they've been operating since 2010. In the RFP, there are 3 requirements. You had to have a plan for the barn, the house, and the land. And what they wanted to do is preserve the barn and the structural components and create an event space with it, but also use it for storage for things like kayaks, and make a rock climbing wall inside there. They did like the location of the property, especially because it's right across the street from the state forest. And so then they could just, walk over there. For the house, they want to keep the original form of the house. Some of the things we wanted them to maintain are things like the original fireplaces, the stone porch that's kind of off to the side, and the wide plank flooring. They wanted to use the home for their offices and maybe like some meeting rooms, but they also want to add a commercial kitchen. The commercial kitchen would be run by, again, people with disabilities, and it would be open to the public for a cafe and coffee roastery. And for the land, what they want to do is partner with a local community organization. And again, they would have the individuals with disabilities run the farm, and also include a ropes course out there. So they included in their letter of interest 2 reasons why they did not submit a formal proposal. And that was because they felt they didn't have enough time to evaluate funding sources and look at, possible grants and donations and loans. And also they wanted to partner with a local community organization that would help them establish the gardens. They didn't want to do it on their own. Any questions about that? No. Okay. So the formal proposal we received was from the Legacy Building and Development Corporation. And let me get up some pictures here.
Can we make Susan a co-host so she can share her screen, Jen? Thank you.
Can you see that?
Not
No.
yet.
Oh.
Give her a second so she can have
Okay.
you. There you go. Now you should be able to share your
There we go.
screen, Susan.
Okay, thank you. So here are some of the renderings that they submitted. They would call it Valentine Orchards. And again, they submitted a plan for the barn and the house and also the land. So for the barn, what they want to do is create a shell around it that would house things like electrical wiring, insulation, and pipes. And that way the internal aesthetic would be maintained. In the back here, you can see they wanted to make an addition that would house 4 commercial kitchens. In the barn, they wanted to kind of open it up so it would be like a large room for event spaces. I'm sorry, for just used as event space. And it could house about 200 people. They estimated, and they would have a bar in there also. The town would also be able to use the barn for things like town meeting, farmers markets, things like that. Sorry. For the house, again, they want to kind of maintain the original facade and some of the things we wanted them to, like the original fireplaces. But the back of it, they would knock off and build an addition, and they want to make it into a bed and breakfast and have about 20 rooms, as well as conference space and a library. And they would give a discount to town residents. On the grounds here, they want to have orchards and some farming. And back here, this little house and barn would be used as storage and also to house some small farm animals like chickens and goats and rabbits. They wanted to partner with the community, especially the school next door, to offer outdoor classroom space and offer farm to table ingredients, things like that. Their proposal was also, it included some elements focused on sustainability and being environmentally conscious, like solar panels, rainwater harvesting. They did include some specific ways to maintain some of the historical elements of the Valentine history. And they submitted some information of similar projects that they've done with historical homes. For the financing, they estimated the startup cost would be about $3.5 million. They said they would contribute $3 million. They would ask the town to contribute $500,000, and the purchase price would be $1. That's it.
Susan, did you want to go through your scoring? It just
Scott was doing.
okay. Scott's going to do.
You didn't do it, Scott?
I have my scoring, but I don't have yours, Susan's. I think our scoring is pretty close, but certainly. So as I go through the scoring, you know, you can certainly interject where you've got something different.
Okay.
That way.
Sure.
Okay. Great. So if it's helpful, I can also share a screen in terms of what I've got for documentation. I think Susan, I think you do a really nice job giving an overview of the project, and I appreciate that. So let's see if I can share. No, I can't share yet. So when I am able to, I will.
Jen, can you make Scott a co-host so he can share, please?
Should be.
Okay, we'll give it another try. Yep. Okay. Okay. So so actually I sent an earlier version of this document to the select board right after we presented it to the Valentine committee back in late November or December 1st, November 30th, December 1st. And so what I've got is the evaluation criteria, and then where the proposal addressed the criteria. And I'll try to go through this pretty quickly. Let's see. So as mentioned, that they have to adjust all three elements: the barn, the residence, and the land. They do that, and I note here that they have conversion of the barn into a function and event hall, like Susan said, a residence into a bed and breakfast, land to grow crops, apple orchard, grapes. They're talking about having goats, goat milk, vegetables, and so their proposal is pretty complete in terms of providing a lot of the elements or all of the elements that we were looking to have in that property. So one thing that I went back and rescored, and I can go into a little bit more detail, is the demonstration of financial capacity. I worked with someone who advises businesses, privately owned businesses in town, in terms of what the proposal was. And in the proposal, they had noted annual revenue of $183,000. And I found that some of their assumptions as written may have been a bit optimistic, and there may be ways to improve upon what they have. So Susan mentioned that they were going to put down 3 million. Of that, they were going to borrow 2.5 million. So they were going to invest $500,000. So that's one element where, you know, we're going to suggest that if they can invest $1 million and have a little bit more skin in the game, that would be better for the town in terms of ensuring that their interest in A, being able to do the project, and B, being able to or wanting to stay with the project. But in order to do that, the other thing that we would recommend is where they had proposed a 10-year mortgage, that they propose a 20-year mortgage. And I have a separate presentation I could go into if people want to see it, which brings them pretty close to being break even if they were to follow those recommendations. So yeah, compliance with all historic preservation open space restrictions, everything that's actually in the criteria section, they agreed to do. There was one element left out of the criteria section, which is to maintain the wide plank boards, which they didn't note, but it wasn't specifically in the criteria. Yeah, what they plan to do is maintain all of the interior beams, you know, the colonial era, if I have it right, structure of that holds the barn up. They want to do that, but what they want to do is put what they call an envelope around the building, and then put the environmentally sustainable HVAC systems between the interior that we see and the roof that above. So they're talking about protecting the building in that way. So one question that we have is, you know, what would the skin of the building look like in terms of the exterior boards and the roof? So something that we would certainly want to ask more about. So they say we on that point, we propose maintaining a beautiful original features and facade with seamlessly incorporating large addition in the rear of the house, and historic wall along the street would be preserved. So they are looking to preserve the historic elements of the property. If anybody has a point that they think I missed or want to hear more about, please say so.
You know what, Scott, I think you've taken us through enough for right now, not to cut you short. First of all, I want to thank you and Susan and the rest of the committee for your work, but if you want to go ahead and stop sharing.
That's fine.
I'm trying to be aware of time, and I know we have a number of people here who want to talk to us. We're still viewing your screen, Scott. Just hit stop sharing. So that looked like a fun place to be.
Well, if I got to look at something all day, might as well be that.
There
right?
you go.
Okay.
So again, thank you to you and Susan for presenting here. I know I've watched part of this before. Thank you for the work that you've done. I want to hand it back to Michael for his last closing thoughts, and then I'm going to open it up to the board first for any thoughts. And then we're going to open it up to the public. Michael, go ahead.
Sure. Jen, were you able to find when how long the RFP was out?
Sure, yeah. So it was open for 5 weeks. It was due on November 24th. We did that intentionally as we were trying to receive proposals in hopes that we'd have something to bring forth to town meeting. And so we sort of worked back when we approached the RFP with the committee. We worked back from the calendar to hopefully have proposals in hand that we could bring to town meeting for discussion and approval from town meeting. So it was the 24th. So it was 5 weeks.
And in regards to the timing of an RFP, Is that a normal length for an RFP for this kind of project? Was it short? Was it,
So
I mean,
it's
I know we have guidelines that we have to follow.
Yeah, so it was, we only have for real property in terms of procurement law, it requires 30 days. Something like what our architect for the reconstruction of the Warren barn, we just finished that. We talked about 45, he said 45 to 60 days. So I think it's in, and that's a little bit more straightforward. So I think it's in average, obviously if we weren't working backwards, we may have kept it out there, but we also were cognizant of the holidays, so trying to get it in before Thanksgiving, and then sort of December kind of on other projects that we were working on. Some of our architects or designers or engineers would suggest that you sort of lose a lot of time in the December month in terms of when people completing and submitting proposals. So we were working with that timeline.
Okay, Michael?
Yeah, and then, so that brings me to the last point of the charge of the committee, which was to make a recommendation of the best/most feasible proposal to the select board. That is the one that is still outstanding. And so I know, we've talked about, I think Yolanda at the outset, you talked about what are we going to do moving forward. My recommendation would be to have our current Valentine committee still keep the members on that are on it right now, finalize this and finish a recommendation and present that to the select board. I don't think the recommendation needs to be it doesn't have to be as direct as like, oh, accept this proposal or don't accept this proposal. It could be to explore different options. It could be explore the two options that are in front of you. We have had a couple of different ideas that have been presented subsequent to the closing period for the request of proposals. So I also have some outstanding information that I need to provide to the committee, which I've collected. So I suggest, we go ahead and finish that process up.
Okay. So, board members, Brandy, Steve, or Rob, we're going to listen. Do you have any comments now before we open it to the public and before we bring any new information forward?
I'll say, yeah, I'm eager to hear from the board members, their thoughts on this. And, I view this as a procedural discussion, like as Michael said, what are we going to do next? So I'd like to hear from the current board members and other interested parties about the best way to proceed at this time. And I'll reserve my comments because I'd like to hear from people. And I include Susan and Scott on that. They're just the overall impressions and recommendations on next steps at this point, and the other members that we haven't heard from as well.
Okay, Steve or Brandy? Brandy, you're unmuted. You can go first.
So first of all, thank you, Susan and Scott, for coming back and presenting that to us and all the work that the committee's done on this for the last 15 months. It really has been a lot of work. Michael sent us the entire packet of information that all the work that you've been doing, and it's really impressive. So thank you for all the work that you've done. I think it's a good exercise to go back to see what this committee was originally charged with, because I think we need to make sure that this whole process is a public process, but we also have to make sure that if the committee was charged with a specific task and they've pretty much completed that task, I feel like that it's, I think that we can, as a board, and with the public's input, still continue to develop the best possible solution for this particular property. We don't necessarily need the committee to come back with all the questions answered for us to continue to move it forward. So that's my personal perspective on that. I think there are a couple issues that a couple questions that I personally have. I know that things have come up, questions about the deed restrictions on the property, the deed restriction that the Hicks had put on their property when we went ahead and purchased this land. So I think, you know, all of that is really important to make sure that we kind of know where all of that stands. There's also been some comments and questions about, you know, utilizing CPC funds. So I think that that's part of the discussion as well. I don't know if we want to get into all those details tonight, but you know, there's lots of things and moving parts to this. So, but you know, I do think that the committee has done a really great job looking at all this, especially in times of COVID. So thank you for all the work that you've done.
Okay, Steve.
I'd just like to acknowledge Scott and Susan. I did attend several of the Valentine Committee meetings, and again, agree with my colleagues in terms of the work that you've put in. And but at this point, I think I'd like to reserve my time and hear from the public.
Okay, great. So I'm going to ask that you either, if you can, please use the raise your hand on the screen, and how you get there is at the bottom of your Zoom screen. There's something that says participants. If you click on that, it opens up a list of people. You can find your name, and then where it says more, you can edit, you can raise your hand. So that's how we're going to get people who want to speak by, you know, because if I try to see it on the screen, if you're not on the screen, then I can't see you. So if you want to speak, and we are here, whoops, lost something. We are here to listen. I'm going to say that we're not going to necessarily respond to everything that gets said. I think we're here to listen, hear what you as the public have to say about this project. Then we'll have a discussion and we'll take a decision. I don't know if any decision will be made. I do want to be cognizant of time because we do have other people. We do have an appointment at 7:50, but I'm not going to shut you off. I'm going to ask that, you know, if someone has said something that you want to say, maybe find something new to say or say it in a different way. So just so we can get heard from anybody. So,
Yolanda,
Kate,
can I just interject one thing?
Sure.
Relative to, we have a member missing tonight. Mr. Mignani
Right.
is in the hospital tonight. He's fine. He'll be home in a day or two. But normally we don't make any decisions. We don't take any votes, especially on a topic like that, unless
Right.
we to the board. And so I just want people to be cognizant of that as well. So.
Yep. Okay. So the first hand I see is Kate Valentine. So Kate, go ahead and unmute yourself and go ahead.
Thank you so much, Yolanda. I wanted to say hello to the group and introduce myself. Thank you all for all of your work, and also for having these meetings be public so other people can come and attend and listen. My name is Kate, and I am related to the last Valentines that lived on the Valentine estate. Joe and Albertine were my great grandparents, and Frances Valentine was my great aunt. And I know I'm late to all of the time and effort that you all have spent working and thinking about how to preserve this property and make it something meaningful for the town of Ashland. I wasn't aware of the call for proposals until last week when I reached out to Jen, even though I realized that the call for proposals had closed at the end of November. So I would just like to say that I am very interested personally in submitting a proposal if you decide that you are open to receiving more proposals. I'm happy to tell you more about myself or anything else you'd like to know at another time. I don't want to take up too much time here, but I just wanted the opportunity to say hello. And I look forward to speaking to you all more.
Okay, great. Thank you. Thank you for that introduction. And yeah, I think at this point we don't have a lot of time, so not a lot more information. But if it does get opened up, we look forward to hearing from you. Okay, the next hand I see is Catherine's iPad. Go ahead and unmute.
Catherine Jerzyk. So a couple things that I think that's really exciting if there's a Valentine that has would be interested in a proposal. So I think everybody wants the best thing for Ashland. And if that happens to be extending an RFP, revising an RFP, adding times, I think we have to seriously think about that. And also, I think a couple things on that. It doesn't sound like all the original agreement stuff is taken care of. And I really think that that really has to be focused before we're evaluating RFPs. Because those are sensitive topics of how those get handled. And if they're not handled, how would we be able to communicate that to a proposer? Ashland citizens, I'm one of them. We paid a lot for that. So I kind of have heartburn of giving it to a for-profit entity for $1, unless I think there can be public-private, but that's not it. The public-private would be, we're sharing in how that works out someday. And I know the Scott, indicated that the financials don't really seem to line up, but eventually someone would be making money. So let's share in that if we go that direction. And I don't think that's the most community-friendly direction by any means. Thank you.
Thank you, Catherine. Next hand I saw was Kathy Von Lenk. Its name cuts off. So Kathy, go ahead and unmute yourself.
Hi, Kathy Van Lanker. I'm on the CPC committee, and one of the things I have not heard mentioned, either in the RFP or any of the other conversations, is the process of implementing the restrictions that are required before selling it. They are needed before that, and normally those takes quite a few months, if not a year. And I have not heard anyone say anything about that, and that is imperative that it happens before it is sold. It needs a conservation restriction and it needs a historical restriction on the deed taken care of. That's all I.
Okay, thank you, Kathy. And I know we were aware of it. It just wasn't discussed, but thank you for reminding us. Next hand I saw was Roberta Sulman. Roberta? Unmute.
Thank you. Yep, I'm unmuted. Thank you very much. I just want to thank the committee for all of their hard work with a view towards what's best in the town. I've heard the presentation a couple of times, but I still appreciate they're going through it. I share some of the concerns that have already been mentioned by Brandy and Yolanda and Kate and Kathy Van Lanker about the restriction. The residents of the town and the Open Space and Recreation Committee and many other committees supported the purchase and the restricted covenants on the Hicks property to preserve, protect the open space and historic aspect and prevent future development on the Hicks property. And I'm really concerned about what's going to happen with that. I don't believe there was any discussion before town meeting and before the vote, and there's certainly nothing in the motion itself that was approved that says anything about a sale of the property. I'm concerned that there's only one full proposal on the table. And now that Kate Valentine said that she's interested in putting one forth, I think that it's essential that the Valentine family be able to put something out there for the use of that property. I know COVID has made all of this difficult, but there is only one proposal at this moment. And I think that the other folks who put in the letter of intent should be given some more time. I'm not sure what I see the rush to be. And I think Kate Valentine should be given some time. And I think, COVID has really made it hard for residents to participate in a meaningful way. And I think that the residents need to be brought into this more. I think the committee should have their vacancy filled and should be allowed to continue their work and look at a whole range of other options as well. Thank you.
Thank you, Roberta. Okay, the next hand I saw was Catherine Rooney. Kathy, go ahead.
Hey, sorry, I'm in my kitchen making dinner while I'm listening to you all, so you don't see my lovely head. I'm very concerned that we've got one real proposal and there's no profit sharing in that. I'm very concerned that I didn't hear anything about the historical restrictions that would be on the property. I also am, I think that offering an RFP for 5 weeks in a pandemic right in front of the holidays is just, you're just crunching your time frames. This is a special property, so it needs some special considerations. And if we want it to be something that we bought on a vision in the town, we bought this property, we bought it for the vision of it being a special historical property where we would gather as a town, other people might gather for weddings and other things there. We talked about a community kitchen and all that stuff. I mean, I think we just need some more proposals, and I'm thrilled that there's an actual relative who's thinking about making a proposal. And I was intrigued by the stuff that Waypoint, the few things I've heard about Waypoint. That sounds interesting. We should, let them do a proposal. And I'm also concerned that we've had problems in the past with developers who start doing a lot of development in town, and they get a good stranglehold almost on the town, and they seem to not do things properly. And so what I'm concerned about is that we have a lot of things going on right now with Legacy Place, and I think we should be doing these projects one at a time and not be having a lot of projects all at once. And this just seems like it's a little too much. I'm very concerned about that. I think that's all I have to say right now, but I think you should keep the committee that's been doing all the work. I don't see any reason to disband them. I think you should keep them on and keep going. See if you can scare up a couple more proposals now that we might be actually coming out of this pandemic. Thank you.
Thank you, Kathy. Next, I'll go to the Hicks.
I think we're all already unmuted.
Yes, you
Linda,
are.
can you hear us?
Yep.
So I'll talk first, and then I'm sure my wife will talk afterwards. The request for proposals went way too fast. I think I agree with a lot of the people who spoke tonight is that we need a little more time. And I would say working in the construction industry as a project manager, 6 months. And the Valentine estate has been there and the bond has been there for many, many years. I'm very happy to hear Kate getting involved and the other Valentines. But this is a historical part of Ashland that we cannot sell to a developer that wants to put a bed and breakfast on the side of it and put another barn over wetlands in the back corner. There's nothing showing on that rendering about wetlands. And, I'm afraid that this guy's going to come in, and I'll buy the place for $2 if the town gives me $500,000. I'll buy it and I'll fix it up. I'll pay $5 for it. I really think that we have to take our time about this, look at it, and what's best for the town and best for the Valentine estate. Thank you.
Okay.
My only comment is I think the committee's done a lot of hard work, Michael and the committee, but they really have been limited by COVID. COVID has really done a job on what we're able to do. We're not getting every proposal possible at this point in time. I think it would be helpful for the town to use a committee and to use it appropriately, and to have more people on that committee with the knowledge, education, and training that could really be helpful. I am concerned that the money that was put up by the town to at least secure the property is gone from what I've heard. And, I think the barn really needs some help in terms of its roof. I think that should have been something that should have happened immediately. I really think that it would be premature in dismissing the committee. I certainly think that there should be a submittal for another request for proposals. I think I have real concerns about even considering the proposal that was submitted. It doesn't take into consideration the restrictions that need to be put on this property. The renderings are beautiful. It looks lovely, but I think it's totally unrealistic. I am concerned as well about someone purchasing this property and the town even giving them consideration to purchase it. And in terms of that, they're not being able to do what they say they can do in terms of their financing. And you know what can happen with those situations. They're not going to be held to those restrictions. And I really think that the committee has done a lot of work, and I think the committee should go forward and if they're willing to. I mean, I know it takes a lot of time and effort, and to seek other proposals as to what can be done. And I really truly believe that can be some type of partnership that can be done with the town, and is what the people paid all of this money for. That's all I have to say.
Great, thank you. Mark Tassoni?
I didn't think I was going to get called on for this, but thank you, Mark Sony. I'm agreeing with the last couple about the being rushed and a proposal by the Legacy Place and all the others. I'm thinking that this property is just a shape that it's in, the lot size, site, and stuff like that. We do have a tree bylaw in the brush wetlands, storm management sort of things to talk about and understand what it is, but to put it forward, proposals that came in under 60 days is like everybody else saying it's being rushed. To have people see it, to understand what it's going to be, shouldn't just settle down to one or two, three things. Can always expand with marketable areas, jobs, education, whatever it's going to be, but it should be more updated, not a background history. I'm going to just say I'm not too thrilled about it, but I'm not saying I'm totally against it, but it just seems like the paperwork and management and everybody involved just wants to get something because it's sitting there and just trying to save it for historical. Historical is good, but when the past comes, the past will die later. Thank you.
Thank you, Mark. Susan, share?
I agree with what people are saying about maybe allowing some more time for additional proposals. That would be nice to get. But I kind of feel like after the committee's reviewed those and makes a recommendation to the select board, we're kind of at a crossroads. And it's a good opportunity for the committee to maybe change a little bit. I think there's some renewed interest in the project, and it might help us get people on the team who have different expertise in different areas. That's it.
Okay. Okay, Kathy, before I let you speak again, I'm going to ask, is there anyone else who wants to say anything? This is going to be the last opportunity. If you do, please raise your hand. If not, Kathy's going to be our last person speaking, then I'm going to open it back up to the board. And again, I don't know that we'll be making any final decisions tonight because we are missing a board member. So Kathy, go ahead. You got the last word.
Hi. One of the things that I wanted to go back on is that on all that rendering, what the Hicks had mentioned, there's a lot of wetlands on that property. And that was one of the reasons for conserving it and to keep it like that. The rendering that I saw that they showed would not do that. And it goes through a lot of it. And it looks, it's not really going to be feasible because of the Wetlands Protection Act and our bylaw as well. I think that Legacy, they're dreaming, I think, on that particular rendering that they had. I don't see that the wetlands are preserved in that.
Okay.
So I realized that I couldn't raise my hand because I'm a co-host.
Oh, sorry,
So,
Scott, go ahead.
Yeah. So actually, there are other documents that the proposer provided that do show the wetlands and that they did take that into consideration. So just wanted to share that. And yeah, there just isn't enough time to go through all of it.
No, that's fine.
Thank you.
Thank you, Scott. Thank you for bringing that up. Okay, I'm going to open it back up. Steve, you basically didn't say much, and Rob, so go ahead, Steve.
Well, I'll just, certainly hear, all of the concerns. I share the concerns certainly with the legacy proposal at this point. I think there's a lot of issues that would be needed to be vetted. I'm intrigued by having a Valentine join us tonight, and
Couple of them, it looks like.
the opportunity for another proposal. And personally, I'm intrigued with the Wayfair proposal as well, whether it's feasible or not. But I think that the concept is intriguing to me. So I would certainly, and as I recall, Susan and Scott, you can correct me if I'm wrong. As I recall, maybe one of the last meetings that you had, there was Michael was directed to go back and
Steve, I think you froze. Yep, Steve froze. I'm gonna pick up where he left off. That I believe our understanding is that Michael was directed to go back with some things. So we certainly want that process to happen where people, where Michael would go back to your committee, and then we'll move forward from there. Rob,
Sure.
why don't you jump in? I think you had some more while we wait for Steve to unfreeze and rejoin us.
Sure. I was remiss in not thanking the committee members. I note that in terms of citizens, I think Margie is here as well. We haven't heard from her, but so that's Susan and Scott. Is there any other, I know Michael and Jen and Beth have been very involved. Any other committee members here that we may have missed I don't think so. So my initial impression is that, I agree with Michael with Michael's suggestion with some amendments, and that I think we should keep the committee involved, and maybe with kind of a thought that this process may continue to some extent, because I think there are other things that, that there's other work, there's substantial work, I think, for the committee to do. And I guess my question, I think in light of that, we have had people apply to be on the committee. I believe we have 4 candidates, if I got it right.
5
now. So, and Robin did apply some time ago, and I think other folks did as well. And so I'm hoping that we can continue with this committee and augment it. Part of what I would hope, and maybe some of the committee members here could speak to this. Do you feel you're in typically we get recommendations from committee members about additions?
Rob, before you go there, I think we need to finish our discussion. I don't think at any point.
Okay.
I personally am not in a position tonight where I want to appoint new members to the committee.
I understand.
Just yet.
I just wanted to get some impressions from the committee members if that's something that they feel this committee is able to continue to do, if we indeed choose that course of action. So I'd like to hear what folks are thinking about that. Is that a feasible process to continue on with? I guess that would be my question.
Okay.
And what generally you're thinking about continuing as a committee. I think I've actually heard from most of you about.
I'm having trouble with the connection. Please try again in a moment.
Jesus.
That's what I'd like to hear, if there's people have thoughts about, the committee members have thoughts about that.
Okay. So Margie, go ahead and unmute yourself, and then we'll let Steve talk.
Okay, well, I think Susan already said that she thought it would be a good idea to increase the membership so that we would take advantage of additional expertise and knowledge, and I agree with that. And anything else that I would say has already been said tonight, so I'll just leave it at that.
Okay, great. Thank you.
Thank you.
Steve, you back with us?
I am. So sorry, I don't know what the hell happened with my laptop, but in any event, I left it with confirming with Susan and Scott that Michael was directed to complete a further review of the Wayfair and the legacy proposals at this point in time. But I did share, I think, the excitement with having an actual Valentine being part of this process and potentially participating. So I think at this point, I'd be primarily interested in hearing more about these two more proposals, I guess. the Wayfair and the Valentine proposal.
Okay, Brandy, did you have anything else you wanted to add? And if not, then I'm going to close it up and see if we can get some direction here.
Not really very much more to add on. You know, it's interesting. I love that we have people here from the Valentine family present, and I would be interested to see what to hear more about what Kate would propose. I'm a little sad that you missed the window of the RFP and that you know, was it that you didn't hear about this until recently, or how did you become aware of it?
You're muted, Kate.
Sorry, you know, there's maybe 7 family members here, and probably like many families, we're Zooming more now than ever with COVID. So we've been in touch, and a cousin shared the Facebook page. But prior to that, some of my family has been aware of this for a long time and worked, I think, in 2015 to get the estate protected. But I personally wasn't aware of it until literally last week when I sent an email to Jen Ball.
And Kate, where are you located?
I grew up in Lexington and Brookline, but currently I live in Nyack, New York on the Hudson River.
Okay. Susan, you wanted to add something else based on Rob's comments? Susan, share.
Trying to remember now. I
think he was asking about, you know, continuing, and if you felt you needed more members.
And adding new members. I personally feel like our current committee, we're really close to the end of doing what we were set out to do. So to bring in new people at the 11th hour just doesn't seem, I don't know, like it kind of jived with, I think.
If you're going to, hold on, Rob.
Continuing on for a while, I guess.
Hold on, Rob.
Sure.
So Susan, you're feeling like if you're just going to finish based on what information you have now, you don't think you should have new members?
Yeah,
okay.
Or even if, say, we did take some new proposals, I feel like the current committee could handle that. Okay. And then maybe kind of, like I said, we're at a crossroads, and then maybe regroup and form a new committee, because I do think there's some new renewed interest in it in the community, and it might draw different people to participate.
So Michael, I mean, we've heard a lot, and I'm sure you guys felt it, right? You know, 45 days is typical, but not for this kind of project. Can we do a new request for proposal? Is that a possibility?
It's a possibility. So first, I will point out that we actually went out to bid for the public safety building in the middle of a pandemic as well, and actually during the holidays. So I'd point that out. I think we can. Jen, so the problem is can people who are on here and who have seen the proposals now be a future proposer? That's my question.
Oh, I see what you're saying.
Officer.
Yeah, so certainly we couldn't just accept, you know, we'd have to be, it puts us in a tough spot. So typically you're not allowed to sort of have people have an upper hand. Evaluation criteria. I mean, the evaluation criteria is sort of outlined in an RFP, but if you're given any sort of leg up on the proposal, so the reason for the procurement laws is to try to make it an even playing field as much as possible. So we would have to do some work, obviously, on the RFP to have a new proposal. We'd probably have to tweak. I mean, it's not as easy as just putting out, you know, reopening our proposal. Certainly, just, you know, we have to make sure that, you know, it's as fair and even as possible. Because obviously, if, you know, our current proposer wanted to tweak it a bit, you know, people have now seen what he's put together. You know, you don't usually share those. Those do not become public usually until it's closed and you've reviewed it, and then accepted the proposals.
Okay. Kate, before I let you ask your question, So it sounds like if we did want to open it again, there's some work that we would have to do before we did that.
Yeah, I think, and I think also we would need to talk about that and see.
That process. Okay. Okay. Kate, go ahead.
Sorry, I just wanted to clarify. Do you usually have these kind of meetings that are made open to the public?
Every time our select board meets and every time the Valentine meets, they're all open to the public.
And I see that there's a television station as well. Do you make the link public?
Yep, WACA-TV, and they also live stream it.
Okay, so when you share the information, it's not confidential, right? Because it is open
Correct.
to anyone who might be able to click on the link.
Right, anyone, right. But I think what they're saying is that typically, you know, we've now presented this proposal that this developer brought forward after the RFP process. And typically you don't make them as public as we have if you're going to extend or open your RFP for other people to participate. That's the issue. You've now seen his proposal. So we'll have to follow up on that. Okay. So it sounds like we have a little bit of homework to do to determine what our next steps are. I think that, again, no final decision, but based on what I've heard from the current committee and knowing that they at least have one or two things left from Michael, I would recommend at this point we not add any new members, at least until we get some of these other questions answered about whether we can extend the RFP or not. The other thing is we have gotten an email from another resident with another, not necessarily a proposal, but a way forward with presenting and preserving the property that we then have to look at to see if we can handle or do something with that. To my fellow board members, unless otherwise, what I would recommend is we ask Michael and Jen to research the possibility of either reopening and redoing the RFP for people if they want to submit, and leave our current board, our current committee in place with their current members without adding anybody new. And then after they've gone through the current proposal, if we can do another RFP, then we determine who we're going to use or what the process is going to be to move this project forward. Thoughts? Rob?
Yeah, well, just, I'm not sure. I think we do have some more consideration to do, but I'm not convinced that this committee has really come to the end of the process, and perhaps they're the ones best positioned to do some of this investigation that you're talking about. I mean, maybe not if we get
in regards to the procurement laws.
Yeah.
And the RFP.
Or deal with Jen and Mike on that. But I mean, either way, I think is fine. But I'm not sure I agree that we shouldn't keep this committee going and add new members. I think it depends on what's likely to happen with this process.
Well, and that's why I'm saying that we don't make a decision on that until we hear about what we can do with the procurement.
Right.
And if we can
I think I agree with
RFP,
that, but I don't want to
and then determine if we're going to add other members to the current group.
Well,
Brandy?
I agree. I think that's the right way to go, especially since Joe's not with us tonight. I don't want to take a vote on this.
No, I'm not saying we take a vote, but Yolanda's suggesting that we actually make a decision, and I'm saying no, we're not in a position to do that, subject to more information. But I certainly wouldn't rule out strengthening this committee and having them continue on, given some of the things we've talked about tonight. That's all.
I think, Rob, that we're actually leaving it open-ended at this point in time.
Right.
And we're looking for some more information, and I think we'll make the right decision when we have that information. So I would agree that we continue this discussion as is.
Okay.
So Michael and Jen, next meeting, end of March meeting, when do you think you can get back to us on what we can do in regards to the RFP?
I think we'll have to talk about it.
Okay. Okay. So we'll determine when we bring it back.
I think somebody made a good point. We've got, maybe it was Kathy.
A lot of projects going on.
Yeah, we got a lot of stuff going on. And one of the things that we were concerned about is making sure that it stayed upright
Mhm.
building. So as long as we feel okay with moving, not having an urgency to kind of do a whole restoration, I think we're going to be in good shape.
Okay, good.
May I make a real quick point?
Sure, go ahead, Scott.
So one of the things that we're concerned about as a committee is actually the structural integrity of the building. And it's the foundation that we're concerned about. So one of the things that we've talked about is getting an RFP out there so we can at least keep the building intact. The Valentine Property Committee, I think we're really low on funds. So we may need, and we need the select board to consider that. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Scott. Okay. Okay, well, we will continue this discussion. Thank you, everybody, for being here and for your input. I know I see a lot of faces where people didn't decide to talk. Certainly reach out to any of us on the select board if you have other information or if you'd like to discuss anything you've heard. And we will be working with Michael and Jen to understand what we can do in regards to the procurement. Those of you who are not local, but who are still staying in touch and want to be involved, another good way is to get on Michael Herbert's email list because he talks about stuff there. You can check out our website when our meetings are, and all of our emails are public, or you can just write to the whole board and reach out to all of us. And we are more than happy to respond and have a conversation. So thank you all again for being here. We are going to move on. We're running very late, but that's okay because sometimes you need to have longer discussions than what the agenda says. So we are going to move on to an update from BSC on our downtown project. If we can make sure that members of BSC are made co-hosts so that they can share screens as necessary. Michael, I'm going to let you start this and introduce it.
Oh, great. Thank you. Thank you, Yolanda. Well, this is the downtown project is one that we've been talking about for a long time, and funding was appropriated in 2019. We had not completed the design process at the time. We were still working on the final design. So we went out to bid in April of, well, we received bids in April of 2020. We ended up receiving bids that were much higher than what we had anticipated. So we have worked on closing that funding gap. And over the course of that time, we've also had some more costs come in from the utilities, which we're going to have BSC talk about a little bit more. And so we do have a funding gap that I've got to figure out how to close. So we thought it was a good time to give the board, an update of, what's happening, what has been happening. And you're going to see a lot of numbers. I apologize in advance, but we think it's important.
Okay.
So Bill or Jeff, I'm not sure who is going to be running the slideshow.
That'll be me, Michael.
All right.
Hello, everyone. So I can share my screen?
You should be able to.
Okay, I'll do that now. So I hope everyone can see this. Sometimes it doesn't work so well, but Michael, thank you. I thank the board members for this time. My name is Bill Paley. I'm with BSC Group. I'm also here with Jeff Fasser, and we've been working on this project with the town for a few years now. So what I've done is I've put together several slides. I'm I want to keep them fairly simple, but really with the purpose of providing an update to everyone who's on the call. So for those of you who aren't familiar with the project, what you're looking at is a map of the downtown area. And the original project area included Main Street from Water Street all the way down to Homer and Summer, and also a section of Front Street from Main Street all the way down to Ashland Lumber, a portion of Concord Street, and then just side streets of Pleasant and Water. The original work was basically streetscape. Several of you were involved in that preliminary process, but the work included sidewalk, curb, ADA compliance, new lighting, signal upgrades, and so forth. And then also part of that work was to relocate the overhead utilities along that same corridor below ground. When the design started, we also added some scope to the project. We added Mill Pond Park, and we also added Myrtle Street, and to make improvements along that section of Myrtle. We also added some tree pruning across in the library and that park where all those pavers are and the benches. So we added that work to the project. And then we also extended the work to include mill and overlay along Summer Street. And that was a result of all the way down in Cherry Street. And that was a result of the water work that was done 2 summers ago. So the town wanted to mill that pavement off and put a new surface on there. And then also the town wanted to add bike lanes along Summer Street too. And then also we included some minor signal upgrades at Main and Union. The town was complaining of queuing along Main Street during the rush hours in the morning and the afternoon. So they were really minor upgrades just to coordinate those signals with the signals at Summer and Homer, so that way they would communicate and facilitate traffic. So that's the project for those of you who aren't familiar with the project. And then this is just a simple timeline going all the way back to 2018. The very first, we had been corresponding with Eversource well before 2018, but they provided a preliminary number to relocate their electrical lines below ground. That gave us a cost of $5.6 million, and that is what we had to go with going into town meeting later on in 2019. So quickly, really 2018 was really starting the design of the streetscape project. And as we worked into 2019, it was meetings with the utility companies, site walks with MBTA. As Michael mentioned, he went to the town meeting in May of 2019 to request funds for the project. We continue to work with a construction mitigation group, meeting with them. And then in the fall of 2019, it was decided to kind of fold in all of the utility infrastructure work that was going to kind of overlap with the streetscape work. It made more sense to have one contractor go in there at once and do all that work, make the disturbance once, and then we can clean it up and make it look pretty, but then also it allows utility companies to come in there later and install their infrastructure. Moving into 2020, as Michael said, we completed the bid documents, we advertised the project, we opened bids in April, and then we had a low bidder. I'll walk through that in a minute. And then we continue to work with the contractor, Geosio. We continue to work with utility companies to get pricing. And what I'm highlighting right now is October of 2020 was the second estimate that we got from a utility company. And then we continue to get pricing from these utility companies after a year and a half of requesting information from them. Eversource finally gave us their final number to construct, do all their work. Comcast finally gave us their design in December of last year. And then most recently in January, Comtract, which is the fiber optic communication that goes right through town, they finally gave us their design and their cost to finish. And then Comcast recently gave us their final number to finish. So just to give you a quick timeline of the project over the last 2 years, 2+ years. So we opened bids in April. There are a lot of numbers here, but I want to try to keep it simple. There were 4 bids. the low bid being PGOCO and Sons at 9.3 million. Our cost without contingency, to kind of compare apples to apples, was 6.4 million. So there's a gap, obviously. How did we develop our prices? Well, simply, Mass DOT has a database that covers all the projects that are constructed by Mass DOT over the year, over 6 districts. So we used that pricing for a majority of the bid items that we used. We also coordinated with the town of Weston because they have a similar project going on. So for a lot of the utility costs that we had to estimate, we used some of their pricing, bid results to develop our pricing. We also used local projects too. Hudson was a couple of projects, Brockton, other local towns, Bellingham, and we used those projects, the bid results from those projects, to kind of develop some of our pricing as well. And then finally, I even called local suppliers regarding vaults and pull boxes and some of the utility costs that I wasn't really familiar with. So I called some of those companies to get pricing for them to deliver it to the site, just to have an idea. And just for your information, this is just a summary of all the work that was added to the project. Myrtle work that I mentioned, Summer Street, mill and overlay, Trolley Brook improvements, tree trimming, and so forth, was about $500,000 worth of additional work that we've added to the project. So down below here is just a quick bid comparison. 6.366 million was our estimate without contingency. The contractor bid 9.3. There's a $2.9 million gap. So what does that mean? Whenever we have bids that are either lower or higher than what we estimate, we want to find out why. We want to see the good and the bad. So here's a summary of about 12 items that were in the contract that the contractor bid on. And I looked at them because they're about $100,000 difference or higher. Things like mobilization, the conduit that we're using, the electrical vaults that we were proposing, and also some of the signal work we identify here. There was a reduction. Signal work, there are 4 intersections, a difference of 366,000. And then the lighting, there was also a difference of 162,000. But all those items add up to about 1.8 million. So it's a $3 million gap. A majority of that gap is made up in these 12 items, just for comparison. So we want to see where the differences are so we can better understand where we are as a project. Briefly, this is just a snapshot of the cost estimate, but we basically used 198 pay items that were put into a contract that were put on the street for a contractor to bid on. Of those 198 items, 124 of those items are actually in the state bid database, which is a good thing because then you have a really nice comparison of where those costs are coming in. Contractors do the same thing. So out of those 124 items that are in the database, 87 of those items were at least 10% higher or lower than the state average. So if we had used the state average right down the middle for all of our items, the contractor was still higher than 87 of those items. So what does that mean? Is that a bad thing? And I say not necessarily. I've already noted that we've got about 12 items that were excessively high, but also there are items in this that we were right on target. Asphalt was one of them. The milling was another item that was very close to the contractor's cost. Some of the items that they may have been 10% higher, but it only resulted in a few grand difference, or maybe $6 grand difference, which wasn't to me as alarming as those 12 items that were excessively higher. So that we just want to understand where these prices are. This slide is just an overall budget summary. So up in the upper left, this is the amount of money that the town had secured to fund the project, 9.55 million. And we've broken it out into different sources. Since that time, since April, Michael and his folks have been able to secure another 1.95 million. So there's a total project source of about 11.5 million available for this project. On the right, if you'll see on the upper right, is a breakdown of the bid, the low bid, 9.3818 million. So I just broke it down into various categories. The streetscape improvements being 3.2, for example, the cost of Mill Pond, the water work, all the utility work, just so these folks can see the breakout of the 9.3 million, where all those costs are going. In addition to that, Michael also referenced that we had additional costs from the utility companies. We have to look at this from a realistic point of view because there's more cost than just what's inside the streetscape limit work. So we included a contingency, $500,000. We also know that there's building connections to make eventually. 450,000 is the estimate for that. And then during the project, while we were working with Geoso, they put together a cost of 650 grand across the tracks. And then here are the various items that the utility companies have provided us to finish their work. So what we're looking at essentially is 14.6 million, knowing with the bid from Geoso plus all the additional costs from the utility companies. And there's a gap. 14.6 million is what we need. They only have 11.5, so there's a gap of 3.1 million. So where do we go from here? So what we did was we looked at some of these costs, and I've highlighted them here in yellow or gold. And for example, there's some items in the streetscape portion, this 314, where we can make some savings on things that we don't really need or quantities that were additional quantities that we didn't really need. But we also went through different items, and I've been working with Doug Small on this. We've been working with GOCO on some of these. We looked at some of the material costs for the communication. We don't need as much conduit now because we've got pricing from those companies. They've told us what their designs are. So we've been able to, we can look at this and with known deductions, things that won't impact the scope of the project or the look of the project at the end of the day, we've identified 1.1 million that we can just save right off the top of the project. So when you do the math, this is what's available. This is what the new cost is. We've got it down to a $2 million gap. So we're not there yet. So what else can we do? Well, if we look at some of these other costs, there are some costs in here that the contractor bid on that maybe they need more information on. We've also reserved some environmental items in case we hit contaminated groundwater or we need to remove soil or anything like that. So we've got items in there that we need to reserve in there for if, what if this happens? We have information that we may not need those items. So during construction, we may determine that there might be a cost savings there. There's also other items, for example, water service upgrades or improvements to the Trolley Brook culvert that we think that we can work with the contractor and possibly recover some money from that effort. So we've identified another 194,000 to be applied to that gap. So now we're looking at 1.8 million gap. All right, we're getting closer, but there's still work to be done. So this slide kind of shows us where we are, with the known deductions. Option A could be to reduce scope. It's not preferred, but it could be, for example, not doing the undergrounding along Front Street from Concord down to Ashland Lumber. What that means is utility poles stay where they are. There's no vaults, there's no conduit. There's no need for Eversource to go in there or all the other utility companies to take down any poles or make any connections to those buildings underground and so forth. So that results in a savings of another 1.17 million. So then this becomes the gap, 621,000. If the town doesn't want to go that route, okay, how are we gonna, another option is to look at option B, which is eliminating any temporary pavement markings, keep the clock where it is, work around the clock. And also there are places where the curb is in great shape. We don't have to move the curb, we can leave the curb where it is, and then we just replace the sidewalk behind it. That results in 58,000 savings, approximately. Also, the town is looking into mitigation credits, potentially. We're also going after grants. And so that could result in another 1.2 million, reducing the gap to 522 grand. The town is also looking or anticipating going after additional MassWorks grant. So we've put in $1 million here. I don't know what they're going to go after, but if they were to get money from MassWorks, you could close the gap. So this just gives you an idea of what we've been doing with Mike and his team and the contractor, who's been very flexible, honest with us, a team member, willing to make adjustments to their pricing, willing to work with the town, and they've been tremendous. And so that we've been able to present this to you in a way that is honest and confident that we in those numbers. So last slide. What are the next steps? Here's what we're doing. The town has about 126,000 in complete streets money that hasn't been spent. So I'm working with Doug and Evan to find a place for that money, and they've already had the phone call with Complete Streets folks. They're going to allow the town to reallocate that money to the downtown area, which is great. That's $126,000 credit toward that gap. I also mentioned the Winter Shared Street grant application, which is due this month, next week. The grant's a really good grant. It's shovel-ready stuff, and in a nutshell, the town meets the criteria for the grant, and I really do believe that they could get the maximum amount of 300 grand. And again, that's a credit toward the project. So Verizon, I mentioned earlier that we're carrying $500,000 for Verizon. We're still waiting for them to get back to us on their final cost. There could be some savings here too. We don't know how much they need to finish the project. So we're conservatively carrying $500,000. So there could be a big credit toward the project. Fourth, we're still working with MBTA and Keolis and the contractor about how to cross the tracks. We have a solid price to jack under the tracks, but we've been working with those agencies, and we think that there might be some savings if you basically open cut across the tracks, and Keolis is open to that. It means shutting down the train, the commuter rail for a weekend, so that Friday night they shut down, they run the last train, they lift the tracks, they excavate, they put the conduit across, and they put it back all together by Sunday. So there could be some savings there as well. Item 5, we have a $2.8 million number from Eversource, but we really don't have any breakdown. So Mike and I are working with them to understand what those costs entail. Do they equipment, labor, and so forth? And maybe there's a possibility that they could adjust that number as well, and it may result in some savings. Finally, I mentioned the MassWorks grant. So that grant's due July. We probably wouldn't know any awards until probably October, but that is another option to help close that gap. So that's my presentation. I'm going to just stop sharing so that we can all see each other. And I really do appreciate your time. I hope it didn't confuse anybody, but and Jeff and I are available to answer any of your questions.
Okay. I think it was a very straightforward presentation, very eye-opening in regards to what this is going to cost for us to improve our downtown. Before I open it up to the board, I had a couple of questions in regards to, there are specific grants currently available for culvert work, Michael and Jen. I don't know if we've applied to those for the culvert work.
If it's the same culvert grant that has been made available, which I do believe it is, ours does not qualify for that.
Oh, why is that? Do we know?
It's mainly to transport wildlife from one end of the culvert to others.
Okay, because there's also there was some culvert grants to help with like flood mitigation and things like that. I don't know if those are still open.
Yeah, we would definitely.
Okay.
With those.
And then this work that we're looking to do on the tracks, we are on the tip for our quiet zone for 2024. Is there any way we could tie the two of, I mean, I know we don't want to wait that long, but can we tie the two of them together somehow? Or, see if we can be pulled in for the tip I mean, it's not that much money in regards to tip land, and money in regards to the cost.
In tip land.
Well, you know what I mean.
It's
The
not,
tip
no,
universe, it's, not that
um,
much money.
so the thing is with the quiet zone, the majority of that work and the majority of that funding goes towards the intersection at Cherry
Cherry
Street.
Street. Okay. I thought that, but I figured I'd ask anyway.
Very little down.
Okay.
So what Bill has talked about, Bill's given a couple of options. Actually, Yolanda, did you have any more questions you wanted to
No,
ask?
but it just reminded me of some stuff we need to do regarding our Complete Streets program, but that's a different discussion.
So a couple of things that I've been thinking of is, we've talked about the project potentially at 10 to 50 Main Street. And Bill has been nice enough to put together an estimate of what that project could have in terms of impacts into downtown and what we could look at in terms of mitigation. And I believe that was included in your packet. I think it's about $900,000. It might be a little bit more. So that is one avenue that we're also looking into. The other thing that we can look into is the possibility of reallocating the INI funds from Campanelli Thorndike, which we had done previously for another project as a possibility. Overall, what I'd like to do is go ahead and put those local, we'll just call them local funding sources in place so we can move forward with the project and know that it's backstopped, but then apply for a larger MassWorks grant. And hopefully that would provide us with grant funds so that we wouldn't have to necessarily use those. That would be my hope.
Rob, you were unmuted first. Go ahead, and then Steve.
Sure. Well, just mine's more of a general question to Bill and maybe Michael. But so why did the bids come out so much higher than, say, the state standard costs? What's going on in the industry? Because this is like 180 degrees different than what we experienced with the building bids. So is there something, did you get an understanding or an explanation from the contractor of why so many of these items were higher? And this is all of them, I guess. So
Yeah, so that's a good question. I've been struggling with that too. But some of the items, because we had that conversation with the contractor, some of the items that we talked about were like lighting and signal work, which was substantial difference in my opinion. And they basically handed the plans to a subcontractor and they priced it and they never like questioned it. They just threw it into the book. I haven't really compared what Gioso bid versus any of the other companies. So if I did that, that might explain, was it consistent through the four companies or was it just this one company? But that's typically what happens is they just basically at the mercy of their subcontractor. I also think that some of the, for example, they bid $100,000 for the work at Union Street, where we know that it's substantially less because it's just really adding a sender, receiver, and a card we're not adding any equipment necessarily. So I think that was a misunderstanding on their supplier or their contractor. And that's where we have to have a conversation with the contractor and say, hey, what gives? Can we do something different? And that's kind of what I like about this contractor is right from the start, they've been open about that stuff. And they go, hey, listen, you got me and I understand. Let's see if we can work something out. So I can't explain why some of these costs were so much higher because, you look at what's on the state bid list and I thought my prices were high on concrete or on curb and they're bidding so much higher and I don't understand why. I don't.
I will say one of the themes that we had been hearing all throughout 2020 was, building costs were sinking. We're seeing these incredible building costs in terms of lower prices, but the horizontal work was staying relatively able or even going higher. And we actually saw that with the 126 bid that came in a few $1,000,000 higher than what was expected. So, obviously the two projects there aren't necessarily the best representative sample. I think if you ask Doug, Doug would let you know that everybody had work lined up. And a lot of it was pre-COVID. So.
Right. Okay. Okay, Steve, go ahead.
Thank you, Bill and Jeff, for the presentation. I guess just to underscore what Rob was suggesting, the Mass DOT database. Why would we even, and I know you can't answer this. I mean, this is probably industry standard, but why even use that if it's such a variance between what that database says and what a contractor is actually going to bid? So that's concerning, certainly. But I think you used the right word, Bill, in part of your description. You used the word alarming, and I think a lot of this stuff is alarming because I'm hearing the word. I'm seeing a lot of unknowns. I'm seeing a lot of anticipated. And, so what does that mean? Does that mean that, it's wishful thinking, or do we actually anticipate the savings that you are indicating? So I think you had a contingency of $500,000 for the project. Is that literally sufficient, given, so many of these unknowns? So, and then the whole Eversource scenario, of course, is pretty disturbing when you can't get really the answers that you need as to why, what is the breakdown for that amount of money, and then just the period of time it took to get a quote from Eversource is just disturbing. So, I know it's. At this point, I just don't have a comfort level right now on a lot of these unknowns and these anticipated, and it's, I guess, Michael, question for you is, I know we're committed to this project. We want to move forward. We want to upgrade our downtown, but this almost seems a little too open-ended in a sense.
I actually had a different take on it. I felt like we had maybe a little bit too open-ended before. And I feel like, where, and Bill and I've had some very frank and tough discussions about this. I think he would tell you the same thing. And other people have been, other people have been privy to those conversations, but we've got an Eversource estimate of 2.8 million. That's a number that they've given us. Instead of thinking that, that's really going to be more like 2.2 million. No, we're going to put the 2.8 million in there and utilize that higher number when we can. And that's, you can see that kind of replicated throughout some of the other pieces. To your other point, Steve, where you have these variations, just to quickly between the state bid list and the contractor. I'll try to make it as succinct as possible. Like, you can go ahead and get an electrical vault, and then the contractor would need to install it. So, so they'll bid on the whole thing. And you could say, and we actually have said this, we're going to pull the vaults out and we're going to go ahead and we're going to buy them off the state bid list. And the contractor says, well, we're not agreeing to that. That's not how we've priced our things and structured things. So that's why, I've said this before, procurement, some of the stuff that seems very simple on the surface, kind of like when you dive down deep, there's all these little intricacies that have to be worked on.
Right. Well, I certainly understand that. The other thing, I guess, the other unknown, and I didn't mention, is of course a MassWorks grant. That's always an unknown. And,
Yeah.
hanging our hat on a MassWorks grant doesn't seem to be the most prudent thing.
So that is why at the very, after Yolanda asked her questions, I said, what I'd like to do is I'd like to assemble a local funding package together so we can backstop that and we know that we have the funding, and then go for the MassWorks grant and then hopefully be successful with that. We did apply for a MassWorks grant last year and we weren't successful in that, which we were obviously very, very disappointed with. And so hopefully we'll do a couple of things differently. That's hopefully that will end up, get a better result. The other thing that we haven't talked about is that Eversource has required their own list. They require their own approved contractor, which escalates the cost. How many people are on that list, Bill?
8.
8.
Maybe.
And they have set it up to where, you have to use one of those subcontractors. We've asked some members of our legislative delegation to help kind of get that waived. We were unsuccessful in doing that.
Yep.
But there's a lot of bits and pieces.
There is. I wanted to answer about contingency. So initially, the initial project, we had a 10% contingency because we hadn't received bids yet. But now we're holding a $500,000 contingency because all the costs except for the Verizon costs are all known. Like we know what all these are going to cost. So there's no really a lot of fluctuation that's going to happen. And then we also have those unknown items, with the contaminated groundwater potentially or contaminated soil. So, that gives us a level of confidence. It would have been nice to have the utility costs before we went out to bid. And we were trying to work in the fall of 2019 when we were trying to finish the drawings and the documents. The only number we had was that 5.6 million. We didn't know all the other costs. And had we had those, Michael would have gone into the May 1st meeting of 2019 with a different purpose, I think, we would have had a more realistic number. And so, I'm going to have a shout out to Mike because he's trying to manage a project with very limited information. We're trying to design a project with limited information. It's very difficult. And, so.
Yeah. And I'm not, certainly I'm not finding fault here, Bill.
No, I know.
I'm just, again, when you read, certain language, it raises questions. So my last question for Michael, are there decisions that we need to make or we need to be considering? And I'm not suggesting tonight, but what decision points do we have coming up regarding any of this?
Well, whether to reallocate the I&I funding from Campanelli Thorndike, that would be something that I would ask the board to consider. And I can work on the rest.
Yeah, okay.
Okay.
Thank you.
Randy?
So I had a couple of questions. First of all, thank you for your presentation. Definitely the numbers are really alarming. But one of the things that you had talked about was the contingency for contaminated groundwater or soil. I know that we've talked about the location of the Nyanza plume and what that may mean for when we're doing the undergrounding. And I'm just wanting to know, sort of what, I really don't think we could probably eliminate that contingency because I think that there's going to be something that we're going to discover. I do think that, I'm wondering if 500,000 is enough for that contingency, just because from a planning purpose, like, is that realistic as far as from your perspective to be able to cover those types of costs?
Yes, that's a really good question, Brandy. I think about that too. So we've done a couple of things during the design phase. One was we took borings at the town's request, and we took borings all the way down to 20 feet deep. The one thing that concerns me as a designer are the vaults, because those are going to be the biggest and the deepest hole to install. It's not the conduit, it's not the catch basins, it's not, because that stuff goes down 8 feet. It's those vaults that go down 15, 16 feet. So, and once the vault's in, that's the only place where you're going to be as deep. So there's about 4 vaults going in that zone of the Nyanza plume, which is basically from Front Street down just past Pleasant. So we took borings, we didn't hit groundwater, and we tested the soil at that depth, and we didn't see any contamination. So that's to me is a positive thing. Still, I'm still, cautious, conservative, but that's what gives me some level of confidence that, we may not hit any contaminated groundwater, and if we do, it's going to be confined to the excavation hole of the vault. You know what I mean? It's not going to be the whole length of Main Street from Pleasant to Front Street. It's going to be that one particular area. They're going to have to treat that material, haul it away, or pump the groundwater and treat it, and then they put the vault back in and they put the soil back into the hole and they patch it with asphalt and they cover it up. So that's kind of my approach.
All right, thank you. That's really helpful. I think that's good. My other question is really mostly for Michael. Well, you had mentioned our legislative delegation, and I'm wondering, there's such a huge delta between what we had estimated and what this will cost to do. Is there anything that we can do as a board to advocate for funding on a state level? Is there anything that's, potentially available on that side of the house?
Yeah, there are a couple of different grant opportunities, and I should point out, we are already the recipient of a $3 million MassWorks award. I don't want
That's
that.
big.
It's big. The price is bigger, but it's I certainly don't want that to go unnoticed. I'd probably engage the board more in a little more advocacy with regards to that with our legislative delegations office. This is something that's been a priority for the board for a while. It's been a priority for us. It's been a priority for the town. Clearly, we saw at that town meeting vote, it was almost unanimous that they wanted well over 350 people there who wanted to get this project done. So I think it deserves that level of enthusiasm in the advocacy realm.
And then that was going to be my other question too, is because this is kind of shifted so much, is this something that does need to go back to town meeting? Or are we, if we can make some decisions that bridge that gap, are we able to do that without going back to town meeting? Or what's the best practice to do?
Yeah, my goal is not to go back and use any more taxpayer funds for this. I feel like the taxpayers have, they've ponied up a good amount of money for this. I think these are the situations where, people like myself and Bill get paid to, manage these situations and come up with the creative solutions to make them happen. So we're taking it on the chin on that one. So.
Okay. And then one final question. I assume that until we get final numbers and sort of the final plan as to how we're going to fund this in place, there's not sections of this project that we could do sort of in sections per se, like, so, break it up into phases or something along those lines.
No, it's not, because the first phase that you would need to do would in any kind of phased sequence would be undergrounding, right? Which is where the most of the costs are. The other thing is that you will incur not only mobilization costs, which has a line item of a couple of $100,000, you'll incur demobilization costs too. And you'll replicate that, no matter how many, or to the extent of however many phases that you have. So, you then start losing any kind of cost savings through a phased approach because you have to pay to mobilize and demobilize each time you begin and end one.
Okay. All right. Great. Thank you. That's everything for me.
Any other questions from the board? If not, so Michael, are you, with Joe not here, I don't know that we're going to take any major votes or decisions. Is there anything specific you were looking from us for this evening?
Not really tonight. Again, I'll probably ask for ask the board to change the I&I allocation, but this is really more of an update. We talk, I'm constantly giving updates saying, well, it got pushed out, and some of those are logistical issues, but there have been cost situations that have factored into that as well. And I think it was good to give the board just an update on where things are.
Okay. Before we move off this, we do have two people that it looks like they maybe have questions or comments. I would just try to keep it brief. Mark, go ahead.
Okay, thank you. I'll try to make it brief. The presentation is for what to look ahead, but it's the contingencies and the where's the money going to be and how you budget it. It's going to take almost forever in time. So through the town management and BCG, whatever the administrators are, they're working good together. But I'm understanding it's going to be a brief, ongoing thing. But it's good to keep abreast of where those numbers are going to be, and through town management and BSG and our DPW, who's going to actually be putting the shovel to the ground and feet to the earth there. They all going to be understanding what they're going to look at and how it's going to be. Thank you.
Thank you, Mark. Kathy Rooney?
Hello. All right, thank you. So I just wanted to say thank you to Bill and Mike for all their hard work on this, and that my husband and I have had personal experience dealing with Eversource putting in the transformer for his shop, and it was a nightmare. So stick to your guns and challenge them on every cost you can, because you might find some surprises there. That's what we did, and we got lucky. So my other question to you about the downtown project is this the same as item 6B on the agenda?
Yes, so under priority projects, is that?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes,
Yeah.
I think we've covered downtown.
All right, and then I'm afraid to ask this question, but I am curious because I hear everything about how you're gonna move what in my business is referred to as the gray infrastructure around and improve it. I haven't heard boo about the green infrastructure that's supposed to be going along with this project.
Are you referring to more of the vegetation aspects?
Yes, sir. The trees.
We still have the trees. I don't think we reduced any.
No,
or any of the plantings.
I'm so glad to hear that. Thank you so
Yep.
much. Okay. Well, thanks for all your hard work, everybody, and stay safe.
Thank you, Kathy.
Good night.
Good night.
Madam Chair.
Yes, who was that? Jeff. Go ahead,
Jeff.
Jeff.
Yep. Thank you. Good to see all of you. Just very quickly, just want to follow up on a couple things to Bill's excellent presentation and a couple of the questions. One, Brandy's question about grants. We are constantly looking at grant and funding opportunities, which was part of the presentation tonight. The Winter Shared Street Program grant that's due next week was a fairly new one, and we all decided to jump on that. So that is certainly part of our mix here. The other thing I wanted to clarify was the question on the Nyanza plume and any work in that area. There is about $100,000 within the GEOSO bid to deal with soil contamination if we encounter anything. So that wouldn't come out of the $500,000. There's already some money within their bid in anticipation of a certain level of cleanup, which may may or may not be needed. So it wouldn't come out of that 500,000. And however the town decides to move ahead, we can, Bill and I have done projects like this for many, many communities. We can manage a project within, if there's still a budget shortfall, we can manage a project to make sure we don't exceed any money that you would have available when you start. So that if some of the ifs, and this goes to Steve's question, what if, we've minimized the ifs, but if some of the ifs don't occur, we would manage the project to stay within whatever you have for funding. We're very good about doing that and know what our responsibility would be at that point.
Okay. We got one more hand up. Roberta? Unmute.
I hate when I keep forgetting to do that.
I feel like I should get a sign. Unmute yourself.
Just a quick question for Jeff. That grant that's due February 26th, what part of the project is that going to fund?
I'll turn that over to Bill. He's been working with the town on that grant.
Okay,
It
I'm
has
sorry.
to do with pedestrian improvements.
Yeah, so there's two pieces. One is Doug and I are going to focus on that complete streets, 126,000 and the 300,000. It's going to be really geared toward sidewalks, pedestrian ramps, potentially lighting, as much as we can do for lighting, like a block at a time, depending on how much the grant is awarded. So really pedestrian enhancements is what we're going to focus that money on.
Okay.
But isn't that, sorry, Roberta, and then I'll let you talk again.
Sure.
Isn't that shared streets? Isn't that also, expanding sidewalks so that restaurants and, you have more outdoor seating and stuff like that? That's what that grant was for, right?
Exactly, Yolanda.
Okay.
So yeah, we're going to focus. That's why we want to focus on the sidewalks, because it's a good application for those funds.
Okay.
Yeah.
It's like,
So I just want to get the geography, like what part of the downtown area do you
got you.
think that will cover?
Yeah. So probably it's going to be both sides of Front Street, from Main Street all the way down to Ashland Lumber. So all that sidewalk work, the ramps, and any lighting that we can fit within that amount of that grant. The complete streets is going to take care of all the ramps on Main Street and some of the sidewalks as much as we can.
Okay, thank you very much.
Yeah, good question.
Thanks, Roberta.
Sure, thank you, Yolanda.
Okay, anything else from any of us? Otherwise, I think we've gone this in very good detail and we'll move on to other items. Are we all good?
Good. Thank you, Bill. Thank you, Jeff.
Thank you,
Thank you.
Bill.
welcome.
Thank you, Jeff,
Am
for
I being
being
released?
here.
Thanks,
Thank you
guys.
for your patience and waiting for the other discussion.
Oh, thank you for
It
your
was
time.
interesting.
Yeah, thank you. All right, take care.
Good night. Thank you. Okay, moving on to our consent agenda. We have 4 items. Approve the regular session minutes for November 18th, 2018 and February 3rd, 2021. Vote to release executive session minutes from 5:25:16, 3:29:17, 10:4:17, 3:15:18, 4:14:18, 5:16:18, 5:15:19, 6:15:19. There's another one on there, but we're not going to be doing that one. Notification of the town manager's appointment of Casey Mellon as public health director and Tina Hebb move from a temporary position to a remote learning assistance to full-time. And accept the $25 donation to the library from Michael and Martha Michaelwich in memory of Evelyn Gates. If I can have a motion to approve.
So moved.
And a second.
Second.
Thank you, Brandy. Thank you, Steve. We'll do a roll call vote. Kinsman,
Aye.
Mitchell,
Aye.
Shearer,
Aye.
and Greaves. Aye. That carries 4-0. The consent agenda is passed. Moving on, old new business, correspondence with Eversource regarding outstanding issues for downtown. Michael.
Yes, so I would like to, this kind of goes on the heels of our last conversation. If you don't mind, I'm going to draft a letter detailing some of the concerns that we've had with Eversource. So first of all, the estimate, how long that has taken. What Bill didn't get into, but some of the other Eversource related issues. Eversource was supposed to start the process, the right-of-way process with MBTA and Keolis. They didn't do that. We found out basically a year later that that had not happened. We expected them to have their plans completed by October of 2019. They didn't get us the detailed plans until the end of December 2019. Bill talked a little bit about the jacking under the tracks or the cutting under the tracks. Eversource was expected to begin coordination with the MBTA based on a prior meeting, and so they had not started that until we initiated the coordination this year. And then Bill talked about the estimate. So if you don't mind, I would like to draft a letter detailing these concerns and asking them to rectify the cost estimate to provide further breakdown. And then I'd like.
Present it at our next meeting and we'll.
Yes.
Okay.
You plan on carbon copying the Department of Public Utilities?
Department of Public Utilities and our legislative delegation.
Definitely.
Good.
Okay. Yes. Okay. Intermunicipal agreement for nursing services. That was quite an agreement.
It is, like most intermunicipal agreements are. So this is for to provide public health nursing services, things like vaccinations, et cetera. We've had this on the agenda, but it hasn't been finalized. It is with several communities. Framingham would be the lead community, and we would be meeting with a couple of other smaller communities in Metro West. The agreement's for 2 years. It has an automatic renewal for 6 additional 2-year terms, unless it's previously terminated. For the regional agreements, it's going to work very much like our Metro West Veterans District works. So we'll have essentially a governing board that is made up of 1 member from each community, and they will be responsible to, hire the nurses, do the act as the personnel and performance manager, set the assessment, et cetera, set the budget. Framingham, again, is going to be the lead, so their chief financial officer will be basically the financial officer for the project.
Michael, how was the assessment determined?
So the assessment is going to be determined by what the budget is and the services that are provided and who is going to get the services and to what level. So
Yeah, but in the agreement, there was a base amount that we are going to be responsible for. And I noticed that it was quite different than what Holliston was going to be responsible for. So how was that base determined?
Again, based on the amount of services that that town would receive from the district. So it's almost like Keefe Tech. It's, we have a certain percentage of our students that go to Keefe Tech compared to some of the other communities. And you have a budget, and it gets broken down that way. What we are going to do is we have set it up to where we'll keep it within our $10,000 line item for nursing services that we currently have.
Okay. So that's why our assessment is $10,000.
Correct.
Okay.
Well, we're also getting more services compared to.
Right. Okay.
Does that make sense?
Yep.
Okay.
And the members of the board would be, so you as chief executive would be our representative or
No.
your designee?
What we had planned on doing is having our public health director serve. Each of our respective public health directors serve on this board.
Okay. Any other members, questions on this? And I take it we have to vote to approve this, we're correct?
You do. As an intermunicipal agreement, you do have to vote on it. I will say that all the boards of health in the communities, including Ashland, have supported this as well. So.
Okay.
That was just a quick question. So what is the relationship of the Board of Health? So they've signed off on this as well, I take it, and would they be involved in supervising the nursing services or monitoring it? Or
well, they would be involved in monitoring it. to the extent that they direct the health director, again, which is really more from a policy standpoint and not necessarily an administrative standpoint.
Yeah. Okay.
But the boards of health involved with the communities, they do support this, but since it's an intermunicipal agreement, the select board or the chief executive of the community has to sign it.
Okay. Any
Okay.
other questions or comments? No, then I would ask for a motion to approve the intermunicipal agreement for nursing services as presented.
So moved.
And a second?
Second.
Thank you, Steve. Thank you, Brandy. Do a roll call. Kinsman,
Aye.
Mitchell,
Aye.
Shearer,
Aye.
and Greaves. Aye. That passes 4-0. Thank you, Michael, for pulling that together. And hopefully it'll help with some of the issues that we're still dealing with in regards to COVID.
Well, actually, this won't be for COVID. COVID's going to be done separately. This is for more of our
General.
organizations.
Okay.
Okay.
Energy savings performance contract update.
Well, so we've talked about a lot about money and about how expensive things are. I thought I'd be able to give you a little good news. We did the performance contract with Amoresco several years ago, and it was commissioned about 3 years ago. And we finished our year 3 of completion of that project. And they're required under the performance contract to do a savings verification report. So I thought it would be good to actually give yourselves and the public actually an update of how much we have saved, because we haven't really talked about it since we approved it at town meeting many years ago. If you go to, I believe it's the second page, which is, it's a summary. You will see that, it's got, the amount of total CO2 tonnage that has been reduced is 3,233 tons. The therms of natural gas saved 70,529, saved 1,414 gallons. When you start looking at how that equals out into cost savings, so for year 3, we achieved a total savings of 294,967. If you look at the aggregate of all 3 years so far, we've saved a total of $859,377. So it's achieved the result that we had anticipated and more. In fact, if you will go to page, now I realize most of this is a lot of math and a lot of formulas that make me nervous.
So Michael, as you're determining what page we should go to, is this something that we should look at continuing the program and doing another review? Is that something we can work with them on?
Well, so maybe I should go back and just kind of refresh everybody what this, what an energy savings performance contract is. I probably should have started it that way. So an energy savings performance contract, you contract with the company that will make energy efficiency improvements, significant energy efficiency improvements in the millions. And what they do is they guarantee that those energy efficiency improvements that cost you X amount of millions of dollars, you'll save more than what you're going to spend. And that's and so that is what a performance contract is. So again, there's a guaranteed savings. If you go to page 10, you'll see under table 5, it says total program accumulated savings. You'll see that, well, just for year 3, the guaranteed savings was 269,936. What they actually measured was 294,000. So we actually exceeded the guaranteed savings by about $25,000, which is consistent with the previous 2 years. So we're actually doing better than what we had anticipated. Oh, the other thing is, if you remember, we financed $1 million of this $3 million project with those energy efficiency bonds,
Mhm.
which actually we did almost the full project with the QECBs, the Qualified Energy Conservation Bonds,
Right.
which saves us hundreds of $1,000s in interest on the bond payments as well. So we're really making out on that project.
Okay.
Michael, is this contract expired at this point? Is this done?
No, it's 20 years.
It's a 20-year contract.
20-year contract.
Okay.
I will let you know, I have argued with Eversource, or not Eversource, I'm sorry, but Amoresco, about the inclusion of the solar projects as part of this. They claimed that it wasn't subjected to measurement and verification. I claim that we did it under the same procurement as we did the performance contract, so they do. So they've agreed to that. They will issue a supplemental report which details the financial benefits of those 3 projects as well.
Right.
But it's one of those things that we do, and we just kind of move on to the next project, and we never really kind of revisit, at least publicly, I think, as to whether or not it has the effect that we wanted. So
Can we make sure this whole report gets put up on the website? Because there might be people who are interested in the nitty gritty about where we are in year 3 of a 20-year contract and the savings and things that we're doing. I think it'd be great for people to see that.
Absolutely. So Frank's on it.
Great.
Yeah. And this is, I should point out, part of our net zero initiative, right? I mean, it's all part and parcel of that, a whole array of things we're trying to do.
Right.
Yeah, I'd make sure that all those algorithms are front and center too. I'm sure many people want to review those.
Yeah, as somebody who had, well, I'll just leave it. Never mind.
Brandy?
So quick question. So this was originally scoped out in 2014 and we're in year 3. So do they go back and do they reevaluate the whole, basically reevaluate the project? Because I keep thinking about like how things have kind of evolved on a sustainability level, in the last few years. Do they, are they continuously making improvements? Are they looking at new, I'm just, if it's a 20-year project, I just want to make sure they're kind of evaluating based on, best practices, basically.
Well, maybe I used the wrong term when I said 20-year project. It's 20-year contract. So the project was done over the course of 1 or 2 years. Now, their responsibility in terms of making energy efficiency improvements, that ended when we did the commissioning of the project. Okay. That being said, we're still making energy savings and energy improvements on our own using things like Green Communities grants and stuff like that. Like, for example, we decided not to do a couple of boilers through the energy savings performance contract. It just didn't make sense. We did go ahead and get a Green Communities grant to replace one of the boilers that was at Mendez. More recently, Frank secured a Green Communities grant to replace the lighting here in Town Hall with more energy efficiency lighting. So even though the Amoresco piece, the improvements have stopped, again, or not stopped, but they're completed. Again, that savings is supposed to occur over the 20-year period. They're obligated under that 20-year period to see those savings. Otherwise, they cut you a check. That's the other thing I neglected to mention. If you don't meet the savings that they guarantee, they actually cut you a check.
Okay. Thank you.
Okay. Anything else on this? No? Okay. So next year we'll get another update based on 4 years of data.
Correct.
Okay. Update on the Racial Justice Initiative.
I'm going to turn this over to Jen. Jen's been doing a lot of work on it.
Okay.
So I think at our last meeting, I had told everyone that we went out for an RFP for a contract for a vendor to help support our efforts in the racial justice and racial equality project. We received 2 full sort of proposals. One was from Hetty Group. it's a nonprofit quasi governmental agency out of the Maryland, Washington, DC area. And they do a lot of work in terms of outreach. They were a bit higher. Our low bidder was Suffolk University, which is nice. It's a local university, obviously, has some stake in this project and in our community and in Massachusetts in doing this work. And so we're working to execute that contract as we speak. And then we're hoping that we'll get going right away and start the project in March, do some outreach. We'll certainly be coming back to you to sort of talk about some of the targeted audiences and targeted areas that we'll want to work on, and then start outreach with the community. Given where we are with COVID, we'll likely be doing virtual focus groups and interviews. We may be able to do, as we move through the project, some in person, but we're really sort of gearing our methodology around virtual, and then hopefully they'll help us with an action plan. Midsummer, I'm thinking, is most realistic, and then we'll be able to present that to the board, and hopefully we can work that into things like our strategic plan and other plans as we move forward.
Jen, have you or will you be reaching out to the group area?
We have not yet, but we certainly will be.
Okay.
They're actually meeting tomorrow night, so I don't know if that's something that, if this is ready to sort of announce the initial outreach and what the plan is going to look like. I don't know if you're there yet, but they only meet once a month. So
yeah, I don't think we're there yet, but also Makita is part of our steering group, Makita Keegan. And so, she may be at the area meeting, but I think in terms of timeline, I'd like to have a little bit, so we haven't executed our contract. I'd love to have that first meeting with the consultants and the steering committee, sort of really hammer out a timeline, and then start to do the outreach when we have a, better sort of work plan. That way we know what our ask is.
Okay. Good. Anything else on that, or any other questions on that? Okay, not seeing anything. Next item, open the 2021 annual town meeting warrant and discuss the timeline. Woohoo! Moving on.
That time again. So as the charter says, that we're supposed to have our annual town meeting the first Wednesday in May. We are still in a situation that can be best stated as in flux, or fluid, I guess you could say that. If we were going to go ahead and ensure that we do it on the date according to the charter, we would typically want to go ahead and open up the meeting, or open up the town meeting warrant and start that process. But I don't know if we want to consider actually moving it out beyond this time, charter be damned, so to speak. A couple ways you can do this. The board could certainly take the initiative and move that date, or the board could go ahead and set the date and have the moderator change it according to, the current exception in Mass General Law that has been made. What are your thoughts? First of all, Jen, is there anything you wanted to add to that?
No.
Okay. So what are the board's thoughts regarding?
I would say we need to touch base with the moderator. Certainly some communities have announced that they're going to be doing their town meeting at regular times, but they're going to be doing them outside, which I know the moderator is at least considering for our spring town meeting.
Yes.
But my recommendation is, before we make any changes, is check in with him. I would think that by May, a larger portion, depending on how many vaccines we get in the state, a larger number of people will be vaccinated at that point. So that would be my process. Check with him and then maybe try to open it at our next meeting.
Well, the moderator is, I think, would like to see it moved out.
Oh, okay. So you've talked to him already.
We've had some correspondence.
Okay.
So we could actually, we could set May 5th as the date and allow him then to do his change of date.
Exactly.
Yeah, I mean, we could, but I'm like, why would we set a date and know that he's going to push it out anyway?
Well, because the charter tells us the date. That's why.
I understand that, but with what's going on with current law, right, that's in place, we can push it out. So I would say let's touch base with the moderator, and if he thinks he wants to push it out.
Yeah, I guess I'm just not clear on why we would. Why are we different than a lot of other communities that are holding their town meetings at their specified time and date? That's all.
Yep. Rob?
Well, yeah, I guess I'm just wondering, what's in terms of our own timing for things like the budget and some of the major, well, it's really the budget and any other major items that we're interested in. What's kind of the parameters of what we should be looking at? And I think the further out we can push it, generally the better, because a lot of people aren't going to get vaccinated maybe in July or August. So, but we can be outside. So I don't know. But, Michael, what's in terms of timing for your needs? What's important?
Well, I mean, the budget is, obviously the most important, and we'll have a couple of timely articles. I think we could probably use the additional time with the budget, believe it or not. Seeing kind of how things are going to play out in the legislature.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, I think Adam, the moderator said he would like, sometime in June. That would be his preference if he had his druthers. I would like to do it I could see doing it in June as well. I would not wait until June 30th like we did this past year. I'd like to do it maybe a couple weeks before that.
How about the election?
Haven't even contemplated the election yet. I can't remember exactly when we have to open the warrant for that one. All right, so it sounds like, would you like me to put together a recommendation for you for the next meeting?
I think so, based on discussion with the moderator, based on, the needs that you see in regards to what you think is going to be happening at town meeting and how much time you need to present and prepare for that. Yes, I think that would be good if you could give us a recommendation for our next meeting, and we can plan on discussing it and then opening it at that point.
Yeah, it sounds like you don't have to, a strong preference either way. The board members don't. So, okay.
I like the June idea. That's my preference. But
And actually, I would advocate for both a Saturday and an outdoor venue. I thought the Saturday town meeting worked out pretty well this last one.
Yeah. I had recommended we try to tie it to when there's graduation and they have that outside and the chairs are already on the field. Right? I mean, why, if we think we want to do a Saturday and we think we want to do outside, let's look at when the field is being set up for the graduation and try to tie it in. Doesn't that make sense rather than double setting up and double tearing down?
If it works out that way.
Right.
Be determined. Yeah.
So.
But I do think it makes sense to just set the date once instead of moving it. If we
I agree.
We're gonna move it. So.
Yeah. Okay, so Michael, you know what you need to do there. Acceptance of the MWA sewer bond. Take us through that, please, Michael.
Yes, so this is part of a program that we are part of with the MWRA. It's to do inflow and infiltration system improvements. The total award that we received from the MWRA is actually $277,000. $208,000 comes in the form of a grant, and then this $69,000 is in the form of an interest-free loan.
Okay. Do we have to read the whole thing?
You do not need to read the whole thing.
Okay. Oh, I was prepared to do it. I was going to do my.
I was going to say the clerk can
Yeah.
Okay, you don't have to read the whole thing, Brandy, but then you get to make the motion.
Okay.
And hold on, unless there's another discussion or questions related to it.
No.
No? Okay. Go ahead, Brandy. Make the motion.
Okay. So I make the motion to approve the MWRA sewer bond loan as presented. Is that Does that work?
Yep.
I second.
Thank you, Brandy. Thank you, Steve. We'll take a roll call vote. Kinsman,
Aye.
Mitchell,
Aye.
and Shear,
Aye.
and Greaves. Aye. That passes 4-0. Thank you, Brandy. Okay, next item, update on the schedule changes for the MWRA. I mean the MBTA, wrong acronym.
Yes. So I think there are a couple of things related to this. I believe Rob wanted to speak to something, but the MBTA, as the pandemic unfolded, they were actually faced with decreased ridership that they had never seen, and so a financial crunch. And so they had, they had put together this group to look at service reductions. And so they are actually at the point now where they are going to have hearings. It's called the Forging Ahead process. So the first one I believe was tonight. This next one I believe is next week. I'm looking it up right now.
Yeah, I think it's the 24th.
So that will definitely be next week. I would encourage people, if they plan on using the commuter rail to get back to work once things open up, to pay attention and listen to what they have to say and provide input.
Okay.
Yeah, just add a little bit to what Michael brought up. Yeah, it's February 24th, 6 to 8. I took a quick look, and actually, it might be good to put me on the agenda, or the board can decide, or Madam Chair, when do you want kind of a report from the MBTA Advisory Board, like for me to kind of summarize what we've been doing? We're undergoing a strategic planning process now, and there's going to be a new director. There's a number of things going on. So that's just an aside that I'd be happy to spend some time discussing that and reporting to the board if you want to put me on the agenda for that.
Okay.
Next meeting or so. I took a quick look at the schedule. I think, Michael, your suggestion to get it out to people and get some feedback, I didn't see huge changes from the current schedule, but I could have missed something there. So the Forging Ahead initiative is going to really affect, I think, buses and subways more as they're downsizing. But I think it is important to have people review that schedule and go to the meeting, the last one on the 24th. The other thing I sent you guys, and Madam Chair, if you'll indulge me, if the board could look at that letter and decide if you're willing to approve it, or do you want to look at it next meeting? I think we have some time. I was thinking about in terms of the budget process. I think it's a fairly straightforward letter. It's just asking our legislative delegation to support the MBTA Advisory Board naming one of the members of the newly constituted MBTA Board of Directors. I think that's a useful thing for us as a town to have that kind of representation through the advisory board directly to the MBTA, which is going to be a new thing. It's going to be the first time that, or recently anyway, that the advisory board has been able to have that direct impact. So I gave you guys that letter. So I don't know if people want to act on it now or take it under consideration. It's really to make sure that Senator Spilka and Representative Lewis understand our concerns and support the governor's language in the budget.
When are they deciding on that, Rob?
I think it's part of the budget process, so I think there's a little time.
Okay. Yeah, let's bring it back at the next meeting, Michael
Sure.
and Susan, and we'll review it then and approve it at that point.
Yeah, and I sent you both the governor's language in the budget and my proposed letter. I think it's pretty straightforward.
Yeah. Okay. Good.
All right.
Nothing
Thanks.
else
That's
on.
all I had on that. But
You're welcome. Nothing else there. Moving on to the volunteer breakfast. So typically we try to have our volunteer breakfast. I remember last year we had it on the Saturday, and then within the next week things just shut down. So I think I'd like us to still do the volunteer breakfast, but do it via Zoom. And I had thought about, well, how could we do it and make it interesting, or So I don't know if any of you have participated in any events where if if you pay a ticket price, you get like a goodie basket. And part of me was like, okay, could we take our regular budget that we buy our breakfast with and send anyone who registers a gift card, right, for all our volunteers? I'm like, okay, well, not everyone wants to come. And then the other idea was to take the money that we would have spent for the breakfast, allow people to buy their own breakfast. It's not that much, and take that money and donate it to the Ashland Emergency Fund. Or if there's another place that we think it would be good to donate that money. So what we usually spend on our volunteer breakfast, we still want to thank our volunteers, and I think we should still do a Saturday morning or maybe a little bit later than usual, and but donate the money in some way. And I wanted to get your guys' thoughts on that.
I like your ideas. Is there a way that we can create this to support local businesses?
Right.
Right. So whether it's a gift card or it's a generic card of sort, but the intent is to use it at a local restaurant or store,
right,
or something to support the local business.
Yep. So
how much do we spend on our breakfast? Do you know?
The last couple of years it was about $750.
Okay, so if we took $1,000 and kind of broke it up and did it that way. Yeah.
Right. So we could either get gift cards and people could buy their own stuff, or we could create some kind of basket or goodie bag. And I'm sure Beth, she's not on, but she's done that a few times, would be able to help us. And, we could go to stores and buy the stuff and make the goodie bags, or we could just give people gift cards and, split them up between the different restaurants or whatever in town. Brandy or Rob, thoughts?
I opt for the simple. I think it is good to kind of recognize our volunteers, and I think some sort of gift card sounds simple, the simplest alternative. Excuse me, and I would support that.
Okay.
And think about how the logistics might work, but
yeah.
I personally like the idea of a goodie bag. I think something that would make people smile. Because if you think about a gift card, we're probably limited to, say, $10 a person, and we're kind of, it's just, that I think it like limits, it's a good thing to do, but I think it'd be more fun if we could make it a little bit more personable. I think I'd like, I would definitely help putting them together or
okay,
figuring out what we could do.
Okay. And when do we think we'd like to do this? We typically do it like the second weekend in March, the second Saturday. So this year that would be March 13th. We could push it out to the 20th, might be a little bit warmer. What do we think? I know I'm not going anywhere in March, so.
I'm not either.
I don't think the date's that important at this point. I mean, if it's going to take some time to put together goodie bags and coordinate all that, the end of March, beginning of April, who cares?
Okay. So we're liking the goodie bag idea?
Well, how are we going to distribute them
Well, once people have registered, we'll have their addresses and we'll get some volunteers and you go drop them off.
Put them on the front porch.
I've had it done twice for me now. I did it for the Metro West YMCA silent auction and then for the Ashland Business Association's comedy night.
And the community center on the Monday lunches delivers a number of lunches to homebound seniors.
Right. So we'll find a way.
Okay.
Like a handwritten note in there. It's I think we could do some good stuff.
Okay. Brandy, are you willing to work with me on that?
Absolutely.
Okay. So it sounds like goodie bags. Sound good?
That's fine. Yeah.
Okay.
I mean, you're gonna get product from local shops. So
yes. Yeah. We'll go in and we'll figure out what we can do. And
so
like I said, we can reach out to Beth Reynolds because she's done a few of these already. So.
Yeah. All right. Good.
Okay. And then we'll look at a date once we have some stuff planned. moving on, discuss the pending open meeting law complaints. Michael, do you want to start on this or do you want me to start on this?
No, I'll start. I think the board's aware that we've recently received a couple of open meeting law complaints related to minutes. And so we're working on that. I believe Tallerman and Costa, our attorneys there, they're working on extensions so we can get into compliance with this just because of the volume of what we're talking about. So I think that's the update.
Okay. I just want to make this one comment. It was put out on Facebook about the open meeting law complaints, which is fine. But then there were comments from people going, why is no one either from the board or from town management responding to these here on Facebook? And what I remind people is all four of us here, as well as Joe, are members of multiple boards on Facebook. And if one of us, even with facts, because then, if you get caught up and you decide to answer a question and it's your opinion versus your thing, and then someone else from the board, that could put us in violation of open meeting law. So that's why we do not respond to those kinds of issues on Facebook. If people have questions, if they have comments, if they have concerns about any of that, come to one of our meetings, ask us our questions, because this is where we can address it, or via an email. We cannot do it on a public social media platform. So I just wanted to add that.
Could I
just want to push it that a little bit, Yolanda? Really, people can't come out with simple statements as a public official?
There is the risk, Rob, if you decide to come out with a statement that we as a board have not approved.
Yeah.
It could be considered as your opinion. And then if Brandy decides to put her input on that, again, we as a board have not discussed as to what our statement is going to be. It could be considered her opinion.
Deliberation.
And then if we do discuss it at one of our public meetings, you guys have already deliberated. Somewhat.
So Brandy can't. So whatever I say, no one can argue with me if I go first.
That's true. You got to go first.
You got to be first. So.
But
all right.
Let's go to the real crux of the issue, beyond just the fact that we shouldn't be, in essence, deliberating on Facebook. That's not really civic engagement. I'm sorry. And
no,
it just isn't. And if people want to engage with local government, there's many ways. It's one thing now. I think the pages provide a value. I'm not going to dispute that. You want to?
Oh, I agree.
You go out there and vent, but that is not civic engagement. And if you want to talk to us, this is one avenue. There's multiple avenues to directly interact with us.
Right.
I would just add one more thing. Just, open meeting laws are designed to protect the public, and all of us here have it's a serious obligation to be able to make sure that we are public with our deliberations. So,
right.
So open meeting law, exists for a reason.
Yep.
So, I'm glad that we're working through the complaints. I would, caution the public to, to Yolanda's point, when they say that we're not commenting, it sounds like we're not being transparent, and that's not what it is at all. So, because that's what open meeting law is about.
Mike, I see that we lost Doug. Was he going to give us the 126 update, or was he just listening?
No, he was just listening, actually.
Oh, okay.
He just texted me. He's calling it a night.
He didn't know what to do on a Wednesday night, so he joined our meeting.
If I could just make a comment about the social media stuff, because you brought up a point, and I'm going to go in a different direction. We have what now, 3 or 4 different Ashland related boards,
4 at least.
Or then we have the Town of Ashland page. One of the things that I sometimes get wary about when I go down the rabbit hole of engaging with people on social media is that it creates an expectation that we answer everything. And then when we don't answer something, it looks like we're hiding something. I just can't keep up with that many Facebook pages. I mean, if I did, you would be paying me to be on Facebook all day.
And that's not what we're paying you for.
It's
It's hard. It's very hard.
very difficult because we do want to, we do want to be as helpful as possible and provide information, but it's very difficult with social media.
Yep. Okay. Anything else on the open meeting law complaints? We are looking at them. We are addressing them. I actually did have one question, because one of the things that we keep getting dinged on is that our agendas are not specific enough. And don't we have to be careful if we make it too specific? Like that's, and maybe that's a discussion for another night, but.
We did talk about that, really probably a year ago about having a little bit more description to some of the topics that really were too vague, really for the average person, really, what are you talking about?
Right. So, okay.
So I was actually looking at an agenda earlier today, and one of the topics is old business, and that's all it said. And
okay.
What does that mean?
One of our agendas, or?
Not ours, no, another entity, but
another committee.
What does that mean?
Yeah. Okay. Moving on, priority project update, Rail Transit District, anything new there, Michael?
No, they're still going to plan on opening their hearing on Monday, meaning UGC when I said they.
Okay.
The neighborhood has been alerted both through the official process and then also through, just regular communication. So I know Attorney Mead has suggested to the board chair that the way they handle it is basically set aside a meeting for each topic. So one meeting dedicated to traffic, one meeting dedicated to, stormwater. Not necessarily sure if that's the direction the board's going to take, but I know that's been provided as a suggestion.
Okay.
Excuse me, Yolanda. I think I make a motion to extend past 10 o'clock.
Thank you, Steve. I was watching the time. You beat me to it. If I can get a second on that.
Second.
Okay. Motion has been made and seconded. We're just going to raise our hands. All those in favor of going past 10 o'clock. Thank you very much. And that passes 4-0. Almost there, Jen. Downtown, I think we got a lot done with the BSC project discussion. Is there anything else from downtown?
No. I don't. We don't have any more dollar signs left to discuss.
Okay. Public safety and Mendez update. Anything on the public safety building?
I do want to say that we have selected our contractor for the project, CTA Construction. They were the low bidder. We did a very thorough vetting of them, like we would have done with any contractor. But just to give you a sense of the scale of that, we received the bids between Christmas and New Year's, and we didn't make this decision until just a few days ago. So it was a very good discussion with CTA. We have some concerns. They agreed to put language in place in their contract which would mitigate that. So we're looking forward to moving forward.
Great.
Very good. And even though they were low bidder, just to point out that this was the contractor at the Southborough Public Safety Building. They did Medford Public Safety Building or Fire Department. They did the Hyannis Fire Department, and then they did a project in Plainville. It's a combination town hall and public safety building, and so they have extensive experience in this arena.
Nice, good. Regarding the Mendez, so they have an RFP going out, but 2/24, it'll be for the shortlisted CMs. They're expected back by 3/18. We'll do interviews on 3/31 and 4/1, and we hope to have our notice to proceed by April 9th. there was a discussion in regards to them having to remove some soil from the Mendez site as they're doing building. And I was wondering if any of it is good soil, and I don't know how this could work. Could it possibly be moved to the Cadillac paint site?
Wait, the excavated soil?
Excavated soil for the Mendez project. Some of it they'll need to keep on site for backfill and stuff like that, but some of it they're saying they may have to remove. And I brought up, well, is it possible to move that soil to another location in town rather than just get it to somebody else?
I have to think about that. My concern is that we've already had to deal with issues of soil runoff from Cadillac paint into properties across the street. And we've had to do a lot of work in terms of vegetating that area and making sure that that doesn't happen. So I would want to make sure that, we didn't just exacerbate that problem or create a new one.
Okay, I was just thinking, as we go to try and create a park there, one of the issues is, we don't just want to leave it as in its natural state we've talked about creating a park there, right? That's still the case for Cadillac paint, is some kind of park?
Yeah,
I'm looking not only from you, but from the rest of the board.
So I've had conversations with Ed Hart, as you all know, who's been the primary activist for the Cadillac paint site. And, that's his anticipation is some sort of neighborhood park.
Right. Okay.
I just think we got to be clear about what park means. Ed Hart's version of a park is.
Yeah, I'm not speaking about his version, Michael, of a park. I'm just talking about, the concept of what the neighborhood is looking for. However you want to define park.
Yeah.
Okay, I'm just saying that, here's a potential natural resource that we're going to be taking off of the Mendez site and possibly from the public safety building site. And if there's places in town where we think we need additional soil for something, can we do something? If not, then we can't. But if we can, great. That's all. So, okay. Anything else, public safety or Mendez?
I don't have anything.
Okay, Warren District and Valentine Estates. I think we covered Valentine pretty quickly. Warren District.
We covered Valentine pretty quickly?
Well, not pretty
Thoroughly.
quickly, but we've done the Valentine Estate. I don't know that we have any more to add tonight.
Oh, I've got a few more pages I want to do. No, I do have good news on the Warren District and 433 Chestnut Street. Did provide to the board earlier today. We actually have the deeds in place to do the land swap with Framingham State for that property at 433. Did everybody receive those? Okay. Yeah. We can go ahead and execute this tonight under the Warren District agenda item. And I would ask that we go ahead and do that.
So I'll make a motion to approve the land swap as presented.
Okay.
Second.
Great. We'll do a roll call vote. Kinsman.
Aye.
Mitchell.
Aye.
Shearer.
Aye.
And Greaves. Aye. That carries 4-0. Okay. That was quick and easy.
Brandy, I think you got a lot of things to sign.
I was just looking at it. I was looking for it because I figured I was going to have to at least read that one. So I'm good.
You have to sign it though.
I will sign it. I'll come in. I'm around.
All right.
Okay. Anything else for Warren District?
No. Just still looking at that big gap.
We don't want to discuss the letter that we got? Emails? David?
Oh, thank you. Yes,
Or do we want to wait?
I was hoping to wait.
Okay, that's fine. Not a problem. Route 126 project. Yay! Sorry.
Yes, and good news. So we did receive word from MassDOT that's the Department of Transportation, that the work on that project will start on February 22nd. And you'll see the contractor on site during the hours, between the hours of 7 a.m. and 4:30 p.m. But, they don't really think traffic's going to be impacted until later in the morning, like around 8:30. So.
Do we know, Michael, I know the first work being done is some tree removal.
Mm-hmm.
Do we know how many trees are being removed from the Holliston end by the condos and stuff?
I do not know the number of trees that are being removed on any part of the project, at least right now.
Can we find that out or get a better understanding of what they're removing?
Yeah, I'm sure we can get a better idea. Is there anything, are you concerned specifically with that end?
Yeah, I mean, because the rest of it is pretty straightforward, right? We know they're moving stuff by Algonquin so they can change the road there and stuff like that. But I guess the Holliston end, there's some concern about the number of trees being removed.
Okay.
Can you also clarify whether it's a rotary or a roundabout?
Sorry.
Aren't they the same thing?
Apparently not.
They are not, and it is a roundabout.
I'm from New Jersey, and I will tell you, there's no roundabouts in New Jersey.
Oh, no.
Wait, Steve, you've probably lived here in Massachusetts longer than you lived in New Jersey.
Much longer, but when it comes to rotaries, there's a lot of commonality between New Jersey and Massachusetts.
Oh, okay.
Well, that's for sure. That's for sure.
What I would remind people, I mean, not that we have too many people watching now, but if they go back and watch this meeting, the emails and the updates on Facebook have been great about Route 126. So that's nice to see that proactive note, letting people know what's going on. And then again, I would say, all these plans were approved 5 years ago before it was put on the tip. After how many? 6, 8?
A lot.
Meetings of, I remember being in the Warren cafeteria and moving trees and cars and people and.
It's been a decade of meetings, and just think about the amount of time Ed Bates has put into that project.
Oh yeah.
Right.
Yeah. So it's nice to see it coming to fruition.
It really is, and it's not. And it's Rob and I talked about this actually the other day, because you have projects and people come into awareness of events and projects at a particular point in time, not knowing the backstory and the history and all the work. And now you've got to start all over again to educate them.
Right, especially people who, only moved into town 4 or 5 years ago.
Exactly.
And now they're hearing about it and they're like, well, what do you mean?
Yeah.
Wait, what are you talking about? Well,
and you're putting a rotary in?
It's a roundabout.
And it'll be little, like it's not that big of a road.
No.
It'll be worth it when it's done.
Yep.
I can't wait.
Yep. Okay. MBTA service update. I think we discussed that already.
We did.
Okay. Good.
We just wanted to make sure we had it on.
We wanted to make sure we had it twice on the agenda.
In case we skipped over it the first time.
Okay.
Have you? I was gonna say. No, I'm not gonna say it. Maybe I'll say it afterwards.
Okay. Town manager report.
So first, I want to start with something that's not on here. We did receive word earlier this week that Kara Terrell is resigning from her position as Assistant Director of Human Services. Kara's worked with us for many, many years.
Oh, wow.
First, the Director of Youth and Family Services, and then is the Assistant Director. She's been an integral part of the emergency fund and the food pantry. Jen, can I say what Kara's doing, do you think?
I think so.
Yeah. Kara has decided she is going to open up her own counseling practice, and it's going to be in Holliston. So
for her,
we wish her well, and certainly appreciate all the work that she's done, and I'm sure she'll be successful in her new endeavor.
Nice for her.
So I wanted to let everybody know that. Second, COVID update and vaccinations. Yeah, this is a source of frustration. Since we last met, we were notified on a Friday afternoon that we were actually going to be the recipient of a few hundred doses of vaccines, not just Ashland, but a couple of other communities that we had partnered with. So we decided that the most fair way to do this was to get the word out as quickly as possible and as equitably as possible. So we did robocalls, we did a news and email blast. We did have a number of people sign up and go through that clinic. Jen, do you have the numbers exactly?
I don't have the exact numbers, but we had over 500 people fill out the notification form. We had we had to move the date, so we don't have the exact numbers from today because of yesterday's weather. So Ed will have those to us in the morning. But Ed was estimating about 250 to 270 Ashland residents over 75 were able to get vaccinated in this local clinic over the past 4 or 5 days.
Nice.
And as of today, 10% of our population has been vaccinated, not just obviously locally, but we were able to pull all of the numbers.
Oh, interesting.
10% of Massachusetts or
10% of Ashland. So the
okay.
population. So that's obviously people who have gone to Gillette or other places, or first responders that live in town. That's the collective population.
Right. Oh, that's good. Okay.
Do we want to talk about the most recent round of doses that we did not get?
Yeah, let's not talk about what we didn't get. That's just frustrating.
It is frustrating. It is frustrating because we're expected to make a plan and we're expected to kind of put these resources in place and devote these resources. You get things set and you feel like you're going to, start getting regular doses on a weekly basis, and one week you get it and the next week you don't. Yeah. I'm not sure why like Northborough and Westborough can get 100 doses each week, but Holliston and Hopkinton and Ashland can't. It's extremely frustrating.
Yeah.
Michael, do you sense that they're going to, that the state is going to maximize these large sites as opposed to sending it to individual or to the communities?
I've heard about that, Steve, and that discussion. I'm not really up to speed on the specifics of it.
Yeah.
Jen?
I can't. So the problem is that the guidance changes really day to day and sometimes within the day. And so as we're advocating for these smaller amounts of doses and sort of and have the capacity to stand these up we still moved, I think 1,100 doses over 5 days. So not insignificant amounts. And that they really do want to use places that can basically churn out 1,000 vaccinations a day. What they don't seem to hear from us and from other local boards of health that are really upset by this is that not everybody has the ability to get to these places. And so we've been trying to advocate, that there's still a significant value in allowing local boards of health to, hold smaller clinics, because it's not just people who are over 75 that may have mobility or transportation issues. And so, getting to these large sites, I think they can be overwhelming for people. So, but the guidance seems to change every day. So today it was large sites. I know that there's a lot of communities that are very upset that are going to push back. I don't know if that will change in the next, days or weeks ahead.
Well,
I think as you're saying, Jen, there's so many, every day there's new information. So tomorrow, apparently the Natick Mall is going to open up as a site, right?
I think it's opening for appointments, but I think it's next week that you can actually start doing it.
So 65 and plus are open tomorrow.
Yeah.
And they're saying that the Natick Mall is going to open tomorrow. Now, there's nothing on the website to indicate that.
Right.
The governor is getting a lot of pushback now with the way this is handled. The teachers, of course, are up in arms. And are they going to open it up next to teachers? This just continues to be a lot of confusion.
Well, and the other thing is that I guess we're getting about 100,000. Was it 100? No, we're getting about 1 million vaccines a month. No, I'm sorry. We're getting about 110,000 vaccines a week here in Massachusetts from the federal government. And with the opening to people 65 and over, that's more than 1 million people. So just with the vaccines that we have now, it's going to take over 11 weeks to vaccinate anybody 65 and over and who who are in that, because of the vaccines that we're getting from the federal government. So it's a numbers game.
Yeah. Jen, I had a question, or Michael. So when you're making the case, or you want to make the case for local people who have mobility issues, how are you identifying those people and keeping a list in terms of justifying that to the state to get that list?
Yeah, so we're advocating sort of when we're on calls with the Department of Public Health. We've had some conversations with our delegation in terms of advocating, because we don't necessarily, when we put in a request for a vaccine, it's really just a survey. How many do you want? And you have to go, within the week, you have to be 80%, drawn down of that. And so that's really all they look at. There isn't like necessarily a narrative to advocate. It really happens more in some of the public health meetings that happen pretty regularly with the Department of Public Health about, the issues that they may not be really thinking about when they are just thinking about it in terms of moving numbers. But the way we're collecting some of that information is through that notification form right now. And so, you're able to sort of identify where you fall in phase 2. And if you have any issues.
How are you making a case for people who maybe can't go to, or, it's better that they go to Hopkinton than Gillette. So how are you identifying, Ashland residents who have maybe more of a need or can fit that niche a little more than going to, say, Gillette? I guess that's.
Yeah, so we worked with the senior, we work with the community center and human services. So people that we work with pretty regularly. We worked with some of the senior housing in town just to sort of make sure that folks were aware.
So you have some lists of people that a little bit more about that you can kind of prioritize, I guess.
Right. And then trying to get the word out. What we did find is that we had a lot of adult children that were advocating or looking for information for their older parents. And so that way we also found out. So those folks obviously would maybe not be able to get online and fill out the form, but their adult children did, or they've talked to people at the senior center. We're able to, we've tried to help people get online and make appointments as well, just in terms of trying to help people navigate that system.
Okay. And so that we don't actually know if we're going to continue to be on the list or what we might be getting or not getting.
Yeah, as of today, it does not look great for us to get some. We're still, exploring if there are any avenues. I mean, certainly, it's not something we're willing to give up on, but they've definitely made it a little bit more difficult with their announcements today.
And how are we doing for resources? Like, who's actually administering these vaccines and putting the systems together and all that? Do we have nurses and, how are we getting?
So we have nurses, and we've also trained all of our paramedics. This round right here was really, the lead was Hopkinton, and when we were talking about it, we were sort of thinking each community, if this had continued, each community could have taken the lead and we would have been prepared for that. But we also had a number of RNs in the community who have offered to volunteer their time as vaccinators as well. And so, we do have a list of that, of people that if we were able to put on a clinic, we would be able to pull that off.
Right. So we have the resources. It's good to know.
Okay. Anything else for COVID or vaccinations? Seeing none. Budget update, Michael.
Yes, there's really not much to update on this front right now. We're actually going back and reviewing some of our revenue projections and our new growth projections. So that has changed some things a little bit, really more in terms of the forecast than anything else. Jim and I still haven't had a chance to sit down and talk about things. He and the school committee are wrapped up in COVID-related operational issues. So that's one of the reasons why when we were talking about town meeting, I thought maybe it might make sense to extend it a bit to give us a little more time.
Okay.
And do you think, Michael, just a question, do you think this discussions on the national level with the COVID relief package would affect us or aid to municipalities? Is that part of the deal?
I think if it does, Rob, it's going to be a one-time infusion or maybe a two-year infusion.
Yeah.
And we just need to go into it with that in mind, just knowing that there's a gap that we potentially could have to make up. I'm expecting some of this to go more towards capital, infrastructure related issues, but we'll see.
Okay.
It's kind of like BSC's contingencies. We don't want to necessarily depend upon, the federal aid to close a gap.
Right. Okay. That's it. We'll go to board reports. Rob, I'll let you go first.
Oh, sure. Just, I got a mailing from the Appalachian Mountain Club, of which I'm a member, but I never go hiking anymore. So unlike Michael, but they did want to, they reminded me that last year, the Great American Outdoors Act was passed, and that one of the things it did was fully fund the Land and Water Conservation Fund for the first time in its history, that's fed by royalties from oil and gas exploration. So there's a lot of potential funding there. So I was just wondering, Michael or Jen, are we seeing anything? Are you notice anything in terms of availability? The Land and Water Conservation Fund, as you probably know, is the state's main mechanism for aiding towns and purchasing open space. So I guess I'm just kind of hoping that all of a sudden there'll be an infusion of additional funding available there. And I just wondering if any of that's come across, any implication that that's happening.
I haven't heard anything specifically. I mean, we have taken advantage of the Land and Water Conservation Fund programs.
Yeah. All right. Well, it's something. Hopefully, we'll see some differences there. The other thing I just wanted to mention, under the state's 2008 Global Warming Solutions Act is being updated, something called the Clean Energy Climate Plan, and that's where the state is going to set its objectives for the next 5 years for clean energy. And it's an important process. They're taking public comments, which are due March 22nd. So I'm going to try to focus in. The Sierra Club did a municipal climate last week, which I missed, but they're putting, it's a Zoom slideshow, which is available to anybody who's interested, really. But so I'm going to try to stay involved in that. And I don't know if anybody else on the board was involved or is thinking about that. But if I come up with a proposal for us to act as a body, I'll put it forth. But it's an important update. It's very similar to climate, the climate bill that is also, we're starting to advocate with the governor to pass. You remember that discussion. This is kind of the state's plan that kind of works hand in hand with that, but it's a formal bureaucratic plan that has targets for things like emissions control and transportation, carbon reduction, et cetera. And it's going to be very important for meeting our, net zero planning over the next 20 years. So I just wanted to throw that out there. And
Rob, I would just remind you, if you have things like that you'd like put on the agenda, we typically meet on the Wednesday the week before our meeting. So if you have something, try to get it to me Monday or Tuesday of the week before so we can review it and then determine if we have time on the agenda.
Oh, this agenda. Okay. I thought you
right for the select board agenda.
Sure. Okay. I thought you were talking about MAPC. Okay.
No, for the select board agenda.
Yeah, I'll try to do that. Part of it's energy levels and get into things, but yeah.
I understand.
All right. Thank you.
You're welcome. Steve?
That's it. My turn?
Yep.
So just a couple things. I think I normally don't pay a whole lot of attention to committees that the state legislature creates. I mean, I guess it's kind of like all the committees that we appoint at times. But one caught my attention recently, and Senator Spilka was the spearhead for this. And it's a committee that she is setting up called Reimagining Massachusetts post-pandemic resiliency. And I thought that was very interesting topic to explore, given some of the conversations that we've had, the impact on transportation systems and ridership, the impacts on work and remote working versus brick and mortar work, the changes in commercial real estate and so on. So it seemed to me to be a very interesting topic. I think if you read the business pages, you'll see a lot of discussion about what's going to happen when we get back to some level of normalcy, and what is that going to look like. So just something I thought was interesting, and you may find it as well. I want to send out best wishes to our colleague, Joe Mignani.
Oh yeah, Joe.
In the hospital right now, should be home by the weekend. So best wishes to Joe, and we'll sure talk to him. I did speak to him today, and he seems to be in very good spirits, so that's good. And I know one of the things that's probably on all of our minds is the recent loss of a community member. Sam Staver from Dulce de Leche. I'm sure, Brandy, you're going to discuss this as well. But I just wanted to just comment on the generosity of our community, and it's probably just not Ashland, and probably also Framingham with the GoFundMe page. That's up to almost $50,000 at this point in time. So I mean, just a tremendous outpouring, and I think it's just testimony to the kindness of, in many cases, the kindness of strangers. So, and last thing on my list is just best wishes to first responders, frontline healthcare workers and nurses, our teachers and administrators, and our town management and staff. So that's my tune.
Randy?
So I have a few updates. First, we were talking about COVID update and vaccinations. I just want to let you know, Mr. Adams, Michael had referred to it, but they're working on, sort of a lot of the back to school stuff. The CDC is evolving its recommendations. Mr. Adams sent out a parent survey this week to all parents, kind of gauging what mitigation they would be comfortable with sending their kids back to school full time. I know Mr. Adams his desire is to get kids back to school as soon as all the teachers are vaccinated. So right now he's looking at a 6 to 8 week time frame that he's hoping that kids will be going back to school, which puts us right around April vacation. So I think that would be a huge step. I know it's a big step, but I think it's I know our staff and our administration are taking all the precautions necessary to make that a safe process if and when we do go back full time. I also wanted to give you a quick update on the housing production plan. Our steering committee met last week, discussed in detail splitting up the housing production plan process into two components. One, which is an update of the 2016 housing production plan, which is moving forward, and splitting off the inclusionary zoning component as sort of a part B of part of the project. So I think that is going to move forward. We are still planning to have the housing production plan get public input and continue with that, to have a finalized housing production plan to present to the select board and the planning board on May 19th is the date that we are working towards. The other thing that happened actually tonight was that MAPC hosted a focus group for housing need. It was a really great discussion. I sat in on it right before our meeting tonight. We had people from a lot of different people. There were people from the senior center. There were seniors that are living currently in the ledges, which is which was good perspective. We had the real estate perspective. We were talking about post-COVID you know, the real estate market is definitely something that has been impacted. The residential, you know, impact has been felt. Things like first-time home buyers are finding it really difficult to get into Ashland. They're finding it difficult to get in everywhere, but you know, it does definitely affects us. We talked about it from a diversity standpoint, about making sure that we are equitable in you know, being able to attract people from diverse backgrounds, which is good. And so, you know, we're moving forward with that. It's going to be kind of at a faster pace to be able to make the May 19th date, but I think it's definitely doable. And then the idea is that we will have an inclusionary zoning process that we'll be able to take to fall town meeting and present, which really doesn't change the timeline because you know, we were initially planning to do a fall town meeting for the inclusionary zoning. Anyway, it's just all now just broken up into two pieces. So, so that's moving ahead. And
can I ask you just a question about that? I know you probably mentioned this before, but are you meeting with the Affordable Housing Trust and those folks and the Housing Authority? Are they part of this process?
so we have two members of the Affordable Housing Trust on the steering committee.
Oh, on the steering committee. Okay.
Yep. So
great, thank you.
I think it's, and then when there's actually going to be a second focus group that's going to happen, that's going to look at housing development, and that's going to, we don't have a date set, I don't believe yet, for that second focus group, but we're going to include folks from the Affordable Housing Trust, Housing Authority. We're trying to make it as broad of a focus group as possible to make sure we have representation. So, so yes.
Okay, thank you.
Short answer is yes.
Sorry.
And the only other thing I wanted to add was just to echo Steve's thoughts on Sam and Jules and the entire Dolce family. This has been a devastating loss for our community. So many people have reached out to me, as I'm sure they've reached out to Steve as well, wanting to help. And I just wanted to let folks know that, you know, really the GoFundMe that Alan McIntosh had started is really the best way right now to be able to help Jules and Dolce. So I would encourage, if you can, financially give to the GoFundMe. If you are looking for other ways to support them, Dolce is still open. So you know, patronizing their restaurant is great. I saw Jules today. He said people are coming to Dolce that have never been there before. So it's the outpouring of the community support has been phenomenal. So and our hearts go out to Jules. And it's you know, it's been a hard week. So but. And then I also want to tell Joe, get ready, you know, get healthy because we need you back here, buddy. So, so that's it for me.
Good. Thank you, Brandy. Thank you, everybody. I too want to give my, you know, speedy recovery to Joe. Hopefully he can be home this weekend and is feeling better. We, you know, want that perspective. I also want to send out my condolences to Jules and his family, and you know, Brandy well said about supporting him and supporting his business and supporting the GoFundMe site if you can. I have a couple other things, but I'm nothing that needs to get done tonight. So I'm going to let us end here now that it's 10:30. Thank you all for your work. I know certain discussions went a little bit longer than we had thought, but it's always good when there's a lot of community here on our meetings to include them and allow them to participate, because this is our time to do it. It's, you know, it's not like we're out so much and seeing people on a regular basis. And, you know, my hope is that come this summer, we can have a regular farmer's market and we can plan on being there on a regular basis. So if there is nothing else, if I can get a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
And a second.
Second.
Thank you, Brandy. Thank you, Rob. Let's go out. Kinsman.
Aye.
Mitchell.
Aye.
Shear.
Aye.
Reeves, aye. Thank you all. Stay safe, stay warm, be careful with the weather. Check on your neighbors. Thank you all. Thank you, Michael and Jen, for all your hard work. Thank you, Connor, for helping get our meeting out there. Stay safe, stay warm, wear a mask, and when you can, get yourself vaccinated. Thank you all. We'll be back in 2 weeks at our next select board meeting.
All right, thanks.
Good
everybody.
night. Thank you.